Good evening and welcome to the October 19th, 2021 City Council meeting. Let the roll call reflect that all council members are present. Before we begin, we usually have, we've had a little announcement from Councilmember Lopez about a celebration happening here in Ogden this week or coming up.
Thank you so much, Chair. We really appreciate the opportunity you gave us to make this quick announcement. Is regarding an important celebration, Mexican celebration called the Day of the Dead, Dia de los Muertos, and we would like to just remind everyone that that is this first week of November, and thanks to our valuable community partners, there will be several events available to attend to commemorate the holiday in Ogden. A celebration of life and death will be held at the Union Station on the evening of October 29th. The event will have a craft market, live music, dancers, a car show, food, a community altar, and more. And the Monarch will also be hosting events to celebrate the holiday on November 1st through the 5th, including an ongoing Latin American art exhibit, an Ogden City School District student art and music showcase on the 3rd, the Ogden City Latino Film Festival on the 4th, and a free community COVID vaccine clinic on the 5th. A community altar dedicated to the victims of COVID will also be on display at the Monarch. We again express our gratitude for the local organizations for producing these events for our community, and I express my gratitude to our leadership for helping us make this announcement. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Councilmember Lopez. Okay, we'll begin tonight with a Pledge of Allegiance offered by Vice Chair White.
Please stand and pray. Repeat after me. I
pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you.
Thank you. We would now ask that you join us in a moment of silence. Thank you. First up, we have a recognition for Native American Heritage Month, and we've asked Councilmember Nadolski to go ahead and read that joint proclamation declaring November 2021 as Native American Heritage Month.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So when the council chair and staff asked if I'd be willing to read this, I was particularly excited. We always say we're always pleased to read these things, but the timing of it was good for me personally. Councilmember Lopez and I are just returning from a trip to Washington, D.C. for Police Week, honoring fallen heroes, many of which were COVID-19 victims as well. But while we were there, we went to the National Museum of the American Indian, and I just wanted to say that the words in this proclamation are incredibly true in terms of the contributions made by the heritage of this community for the broader community. Councilmember Lopez and I were unbelievably moved by especially the 4th floor exhibit. So if anybody has the opportunity to go there, we recommend it. That's my long way of saying I'm honored to read this tonight, so thanks. A joint proclamation of the Ogden City Council and Mayor declaring November 2021 Native American Heritage Month in Ogden City. Whereas for millennia before Europeans settled in North America, the native people of this continent flourished. From generation to generation, they handed down invaluable cultural knowledge and rich traditions. Native Americans were the first to live in what is now Ogden. And whereas Native Americans have significantly shaped our country's character and culture, they were the first stewards of our environment and helped to build the very fabric of America. Our cultural heritage has been enriched immeasurably by their customs and traditions, with each tribe sharing wonderful portions of its unique history and character. And whereas Native Americans have also served this country with distinction, shared their wealth of knowledge and talents, many foods, medicines, and remedies that are used today were introduced by them, and they have made notable contributions in education, government, law, medicine, sports, art, the military, science, and literature. Their many contributions continue to enrich and strengthen our community. And whereas we cannot forget the long and unfortunate chapters of violence, discrimination, and deprivation Native Americans had to endure. For far too long, the heritage we honor today was disrespected and devalued. We cannot ignore these events or erase their consequences. But as we work together, we can learn from these lessons of our past and forge a brighter future. And whereas today we honor the legacy of Native Americans and celebrate their rich heritage, Native American Heritage Month is an opportunity for our community to learn about Native American culture and gain an awareness of the unique challenges Native people have faced and the ways in which they have worked to overcome those challenges. Now, therefore, the Ogden City Council and Mayor Michael P. Caldwell hereby proclaim November 2021 Native American Heritage Month in Ogden City. We recognize the profound influence of Native Americans and acknowledge the importance of their contributions throughout the greater Ogden community. We express our sincere appreciation for Weber State University's 16th Annual Native Symposium and for all others who are working to highlight and embrace Native cultures. In order to pass and adopt this on the 19th day of October 2021, I make a motion that we approve this joint proclamation.
Second.
Thank you. We have a motion by Councilmember Nadolski and a second by Councilmember Lopez to adopt this joint proclamation. This is a voice vote. All in favor? Say all in favor.
Aye.
Any opposed? That passes. Thank you.
Mr. Chair, we're joined today by Tashina Barber from Weber State University.
Yeah. Tashina, would you like to please come forward and bring your guests?
And her contingency and guests here are supporting this. Please come forward.
Here, I'll shake your hand.
Yeah, start on an end.
Start on Not over at the chair.
Thank you. Thank you for being here.
Thanks so much. And let's do your education, okay?
Thank you for being here.
Thanks so much. And we'll get settled here, okay?
Appreciate you being here.
I like that.
Thank you.
That's cool.
Hey,
Thank
thanks
you.
for coming.
Thank you for being here. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for being
Appreciate you
here.
coming.
Appreciate it.
You made it.
Thank you.
Hello. Hi.
Appreciate you being here.
Thank you very much for being here.
Wow, this is like,
Hello.
This is my
Hi. Michiko, how are you?
Oh, it was so nice, man.
I know, it was like,
Yep.
we didn't have to do this.
Last week our pictures were a lot shorter. It was perfect.
All right. You gotta find a window.
Find
There
the
we go.
window.
Okay.
Which window?
There you go. Perfect. Okay, look in here. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. Get one more. 2 more. I lied. Thank you. If you want to address the council and talk about it, please.
Right. They've got someone speaking. Yep. She's coming.
Okay. Yat Eshe Amanda Jones Inisha, Tabahanishli, Kenslichini Bashishin, Bit Ani Dashiche, Dotlash Dashanali, Akotal Dina Adzani Nishle. Hello, my name is Amanda Jones. I am Edgewater clan, born for the Red House clan. My maternal grandfather's clan is the Folding Arms people, and my paternal grandfather's clan is the Red Bottom clan. And that is how I identify as a Diné Navajo woman. I just want to thank the city and the Ogden City Arts Grant for our event that we ended up hosting on October 16th. It was an amazing event that we were able to have, and that NASA, the Native American Student Association, has amazing students that were able to plan the situation or plan the whole event along with our advisor Tashina Barber. And I just want to let you know about some upcoming events that we do have coming up in November. for all of the month, we do have our Native American Heritage Month. And in the bridge that we have up at Weber State is our Missing and Murdered Indigenous Women Bridge Display. And that is something that is provided by our students and that we put on display to help educate others in the community and also up on campus. On November 3rd, Wednesday, we have our 16th annual Native Symposium Keynote, Illuminating Indigenous Voices with Dr. Kim Tallbear, and that is in partnership with NASA. It'll be from 6 p.m. to 8 p.m. over Zoom. And then November 11th on Thursday, we also have our film screening called Chasing Voices. This is in partnership also with UEN and NASA. That's going to be determined very soon. And then on the 15th through the 19th, we will be having our NASA Native American Heritage Month Solidarity Week. So that will include like rocking your mugs, traditional attire day, Native cuisine day, Native jewelry day, and Native t-shirt day. So that's something that our students can all participate in and show their pride in who they are. And then on March 26, 2022, we will be having our Indigenous Voices Powwow. That is going to be an all-day event that is held up on campus. We're still determining where that's going to be, the time, and everything like that, but normally it is an all-day event. And then I just wanted to thank the Ogden City Council, the City of Ogden, Weber State University, President Mortensen, WSU Chief Diversity Officer Adrian Andrews, the WSU Access and Diversity Director, Dr. Enrique Romo, and the WSU Center for Multicultural Excellence Director, Michiko Nakashima Lizarazo, for their support. And then most importantly, the Center for Multicultural Excellence Retention Counselor and NASA Advisor, Tashina Barber, for her guidance and tireless efforts in working to eliminate Native voices at WSU, Ogden, and beyond. So thank you. Yeah.
Thank you. Can we get a list of those dates? I know I couldn't keep up writing them all down, but if we could get a list of those activities you have coming up, that'd be great. I don't know if there's any other council comments before we move on. No? Okay.
I was going to say something.
Yes, please.
Sorry, I was too slow on my mic. I just wanted to say how much I appreciate the events that you hold at Weber State. I've attended those for several years and just really think they're a great addition to the community. Thank you.
Just the same. I want to say thank you. And I have some ideas. For a long time, I've been wanting to try to pursue some type of an opportunity to try to maybe do something at the Community Education Center for Weber State on 26th and Monroe. One of my best friends is a full-blooded Navajo, and I tell him that one idea I have, I don't know if it's a good idea or not, but I wish that we could have some kind of a program where maybe we try to help do something to preserve like some of your native languages. And I'm not sure how we could do that, but I would love to talk to some of you about that to see if you think that something like that is possible or something else that we could do and that maybe our council can support it. So I will probably be reaching out to talk about that. Thank you.
I just want to share one thing. So when we went to this museum, they're like the first 3 floors shares a lot of the atrocities. It puts you through a real emotional kind of a roller coaster, things that we can't deny and need to value and respect and make right. When we get to the 4th floor, Councilmember Lopez and I were on this trip with and for the police officers, and we were there to value and respect and love family, colleagues who lost someone really close to them. And so we were having a lot of really, I don't know, we had a lot of time and conversations and travel, and we talked a lot about, family and faith and religion and so on. And so it was really timely when we got to this 4th floor. It talked about all the historical contributions of Native American culture to spiritual teachings and beliefs. And I was blown away at how grounded the things that we believe today are in everything that we saw. The one that I took pictures of, and I was just looking at them again, is and my apologies if I mispronounced the 7 teachings of the Anishinabe, of truth, humility, honesty, courage, respect, love, and wisdom. And so while we're always looking for ways that we can, know or learn or understand fact or truth or science, whatever God or spirit or energy that you believe, just remember that those contributions didn't begin with us. They began long, long ago by those that were here first. And that was one of the things that I learned on that trip that I made sure to take careful attention to, because it's something I want to incorporate into my life. So thank you for everything you're doing to preserve those cultural importance. Thank you.
Anything else? None. Okay. Thank you again. Thank you for being here. Okay. Moving on. Next up, we have a public hearing for the fiscal year 2021-2022 budget and salary schedule amendments, police salaries. First, we'll have a presentation by, it looks like, not Lisa Stout.
Leslie.
Sorry? Leslie, yep.
Good evening, council members. Thanks for allowing us to present to you tonight on the police hiring environment and the crisis that we're facing today. So we have a presentation that we'll go over to address the environment, the effects, and what our proposed plans and costs are. So with that, I will turn the time over to Chief Young for a few minutes.
Is the right button, go forward. Council members, thank you for having me here tonight. I appreciate you making time for us to be here. I want to start real quickly by thanking Leslie, the Director of HR, Justin Sorensen, who's behind us, Heather Brisky, Lisa Stout, and those here in the city, the Mayor, Mike Caldwell, and our CAO, Mark Johnson, who understood the crisis we were in and made it a priority to get on top of this right away. And that's why I'm able to be here with you so quickly after we realized we had a real problem on our hands. I want to talk to you real quickly about the police hiring environment we're in right now, some things that have happened recently in that environment, the new normal, the effect is what I'm going to cover. We'll have Justin Sorensen come up and talk to you about phase 2, phase 3, the proposed pay plan, and how the city's going to fund that proposed pay plan. In the end of June of this year, we'd approved our budget for fiscal year 22. We were able to implement a new 8-step pay plan that was designed by an evaluation by the Evergreen Company out of Florida. But we thought we were doing a great job. We weren't able to move the officers all the way into where they were fully penetrated into those 8 steps, but we implemented the 8 steps, moved them to their next closest step. We're on track to move them into their needed steps in this year in July for the fiscal year 23 was the plan. Well, that was turned upside down at the end of June when the end of that month, Salt Lake City announced they were drastically increasing their pay scale from about $22 an hour to begin with, up to $26.93 an hour to begin with, and from a top out wage of around $32 an hour to $39 an hour. That came in a time when Salt Lake was already down 80 to 100 police officers. So this drastic pay range was meant to pull police officers and new police recruits from around the state in a vacuum that already existed. Other agencies in Salt Lake County, Salt Lake Valley realized what the effect of this was going to be, beginning with West Valley. It was already about 30 officers short and knew they were on the precipice of losing another 30 to 40 officers because their wage wasn't competitive. They went in an emergency meeting just after July, after their fiscal year budget was already passed, but they had no choice but to make an emergency amendment and raise theirs above Salt Lake to $27.15 an hour to start and $41.90 an hour at the top. Just phenomenal. Those increases didn't end, unfortunately, with West Valley. They grew across the valley. South Salt Lake actually topped both of those. They spread into Davis County. Layton PD was forced to raise their top end. They were about to lose double-digit number of officers to Salt Lake City or to West Valley. Kaysville did the same thing. You'll see where they went to $41.29 an hour. Riverdale responded in Weber County by giving each officer a 2-step increase in their existing pay range. And the Weber County Sheriff's Office responded by actually Weber County giving all of their employees a $2 an hour raise across the board. This drastic shift in compensation left OPD in a very unfortunate place. We were anywhere from $6 to $9 an hour below our competition. And although our market and our base is not the same as the Salt Lake Valley, unfortunately, we have to compete against them. We lose officers there. You're all very aware of how many officers we lost, and we lost numerous good officers in the past, and we were in a great place to where we're actually getting a lot of these police officers back. We had drastically increased our hiring since January of this year. The tight employment market across the country in Utah has really led to a shortage of qualified police officers. In Utah alone, there's more than 600 police vacancies. Just in the state of Utah, 600 police officers. Post can only train about 200 at their primary campus and 200 at satellite campuses in one annual year. And there's going to be at least another 100 or 200 vacancies that take place just through attrition, retirements, and resignations just during this year. So we're not going to get out of this in 1 year. As I mentioned, we've done really well. We were tracking in a great direction since January. Up through August, 19 hires, new hires or rehires, including 3 officers who returned from Salt Lake City because they wanted to come back to Ogden City. It was a great trend, but unfortunately those being $6 to $9 an hour below was not going to help us maintain that trend. For us, as of September of 2021, the reason this was such a crisis, the opportunity or the possibility of losing more officers is that we were already 10 unfilled sworn positions down, with 11 of those more officers who were hired but still in training in post or FTO program. We had 2 officers on light duty status, and we had 4 on military leave at that time, but that's a number that trends up and down depending on deployments. So the effect, we immediately saw a drastic reduction in the number of new applicants coming to the city. And we had new hire applicants who were in our process that removed themselves, saying they'd chosen to go to Salt Lake or West Valley instead because it was just drastically more money. Our Fraternal Order of Police and some of our internal groups at the police department were concerned about this. They knew we were short on officers already. They wanted to be here. They didn't want to see us lose more officers, so they undertook an anonymous survey. They sent out amongst all the officers in the police department. What they found from that anonymous survey is that 22 officers had already submitted applications at some of these higher-paying agencies, and another 45 were considering submitting applications at these higher-paying agencies. We have had 1 officer already submit the resignation to take an opportunity at Riverdale, and we've had numerous visits from background investigators who are officers or civilian employees from other departments coming in to look at the backgrounds, employment history, and files of our employees because they're at least considering. When we let the employees know that we were looking at some kind of an opportunity to do something to address this, that kind of came to a standstill, and we've been steady since then. We did lose 1 officer this week, but that was a planned one that his family's relocating to another city. So we're going to turn it over to Justin.
Thank you. Thanks, Chief Young. So in looking at where we were at prior to all these changes that happened following our adoption of the fiscal year 22 budget, when we implemented the Evergreen study, we were looking at doing it in a few phases. The first phase we did, or the big phase we did in fiscal year 22, we had added just for the police department alone, almost $1.4 million to be able to put them into their closest step within these new steps that were adopted. The total amount that we added to the budget this year for the general employee, police, and fire was just over $3.2 million. So as you can see, it was a pretty big increase to the budget this year just to implement part of this Evergreen study. And then the next phase would be, as Chief Young talked about, we put the police and fire into their closest step in this new study instead of penetrating them to where they should be. And so the original proposal would have been next fiscal year to increase or to fully penetrate those positions. And that cost that we were looking at was just over $2.1 million for both police, fire, and the general employee. So that's where we were at before this crisis was brought forward and these proposals that are now before you tonight.
So what we are proposing is to immediately increase the police salary structure so that we are more competitive with the market. We are also expanding the police officer range to 12 steps, which is in line with our surrounding agencies and the way that their structure is set up. The current police officer starts out right now at $21.39 an hour up to $32.20. We're proposing to begin a police officer at $24.80 and go to $37.63 an hour. By doing this, it also will increase the sergeant, lieutenant, and division commander ranges just to keep that structure complete. This is just an outline of our current plan for police officer. You can see that there's 9 steps, 9 because we start with a 0 in our system, and our proposed plan would be 12 steps, going from $24.80 up to $37.63 per hour.
So with that information tonight before you, for your consideration, is to adopt 2 different ordinances. Proposed ordinance 2021-53, which would amend the police salary schedules to reflect those new steps that Leslie has just described for police officers as well as the other steps within their department. And then the other is proposed ordinance 2021-48, which would be to amend the budget to be able to put this new plan into place. And so what that budget is it's a cost of just shy of 2.5 million. And what that includes is what we did. We went and looked at where each police officer was before we implemented the Evergreen study, before we brought them to their closest step, to determine where they would have fully penetrated in using these new steps. And from there, we went through and calculated what that cost would be. And then from there, what their next step would be in the new range. And then we took that information and took the difference between that and what we had already adopted this year. And that's where we are able to come up with what this budget opening is. So it includes putting all the police officers into their full step penetration in this new pay plan. We would make it retroactively effective back to July 1st. So what we would do is anybody or all the officers from July till the proposal would make this effective November 13th. We would go through those pay periods and determine what the cost difference would have been had we implemented July 1, and we would provide that in a one-time amount to them. And that does a couple of things. It makes it equitable across all of the officers because some of them have already received their step increase because their step increases are on their anniversary date, not on July 1. And so to make it equitable across the board is why we determined the amounts that way. And then also it would provide anybody, it would put them into where their step is. If they'd already received it would have already received a step. And then anybody who is yet to receive their step because their anniversary is yet to occur, we've budgeted for that increase as well. So, and then for fiscal year 23, going back into the discussion as far as implementing the rest of the Evergreen study, if we were to take the 2.5 million that we would be proposing to add to the budget now for this year, for next year we would need to add that as well, as along with what the next step proposed. And these are estimates as of right now, but it would be adding just over 300,000 for the next step for police, and then also doing the full penetration for fire and for the general employee. So you can see, as of right now, the estimated amount that would be needed for fiscal year 23 would be just shy of 4.3 million. To fund these increases this year, what our proposal is in the ordinance is we have found that our sales tax revenue is still continued to be higher than what was budgeted for the first few months. We've received 2 months so far this fiscal year. And so we feel comfortable taking what we've already received. And if we were to project out the rest of the year with a % increase each month, just over what we have budgeted, that we feel comfortable raising that sales tax revenue by $990,950. And then the rest of the amount needed to be able to do this budget amendment would come from fund balance. And then the funding for fiscal year 23 would be determined as we come before you with the fiscal year 23 budget. And you can see what that cost is.
Thank you. I just want to just quickly close, and a couple things I wanted to highlight from that presentation is you'll see we didn't come to parity with Salt Lake or West Valley or any of those agencies, and I don't think it's necessary to do that. Not that our officers don't deserve that; they absolutely do. But our officers are here because they want to be here. They love Ogden. They love the support they get from this group, from our mayor, from our city manager, and from our citizens. It was never more evident than it was last week when we were in Washington, D.C., putting Nate Lyday's name on the wall. So the other problem with coming to complete parity is that Salt Lake's committed to make their officers the highest paid in the state every fiscal year. So every one of those agencies who raise their wages above Salt Lake just pretty much shot themselves in the foot, and everybody else. So, but we do have to do what we have proposed. It may not be enough, but it's what's fair, and it's gonna keep our officers here and keep them feel valued and keep them doing the phenomenal work that they're doing every day. I plan to be back here with you in a few weeks on the agenda to talk about our accreditation, to share with you some of the phenomenal statistics that are coming out of last year's crime report on how Ogden's doing with crime because of the work these officers, like the ones who come and see every week and watch over you, are doing. They really are doing phenomenal work. So I thank you for your time, and if there are any questions, any of the three of us would be happy to take them.
Chair?
Yes.
I have one maybe for the chief. I appreciate the work of the officers, and surely salary is very important, but could you relate our benefits that we give to our officers compared to these other departments?
Yeah, thank you. We do a good job, and we do pay a lot of attention. And when the Evergreen study was completed, it did factor in the benefit package we have. We've always had a very, very good healthcare package. We do pay our officers an educational incentive based on whether they have an associate's degree, a bachelor's degree, or a master's degree. We're also including our pilots who have an FFA license to pilot drones in that incentive program as well. We pay a shift differential bonus for working weekends and graveyard shifts, as well as Spanish-speaking incentives. So, and we give them a stipend for a clothing allowance when they begin as well to cover all their cost, outfit, uniforms, clothing, and PT gear. So we do a good job, and we're probably ahead of the curve on that. So we're just trying to make sure we're at least where we need to be on pay to go along with that wonderful benefit program.
So if they spend, say, 5 years, do they get extra amount for completing those 5 years?
Yeah, we do. We do have a loyalty program as well that we're looking at. We'll be looking at in future years' budgets whether or not it will make sense to do with. You see the figure that's being proposed potentially to bring all those employees to where they need to be in that Evergreen proposal. But we do currently give a very generous loyalty bonus that is in place through this fiscal year, and our employees do appreciate that as well.
Okay. Not that we don't have questions, but we did have an extensive work session, and we got to get a lot of information from you, so thank you. We good to move on for public input? Okay. Thank you all for the presentation. We will now go ahead and accept public input on this issue. Those wishing to speak on either one of these two actions, please come to the pulpit and state your name and address for the record.
Chair, seeing no movement, I propose.
We have one online.
Sorry.
Yep. Thanks, Brandon. Yeah, we have Angel Castillo, who is joining us online. Go ahead, Angel. The time is now yours.
Good evening. Angel Castillo, Ogden resident. I wholeheartedly support this increase, as you hear every single time y'all do the budget, but I'm always petitioning for more money for our officers because we don't have enough staff as sworn officers, and they don't have enough money for training. And yes, we will never reach parity with Salt Lake City, but we need to make sure that they're getting all of those other benefits like training and stipends on top of stipends to keep them here. Our officers do an amazing job. I will always prioritize public safety over other projects because it's the backbone and it's exactly what a city is supposed to do. The city is responsible for water, power, and public safety, and everything else is a cherry on the top, and it's great. But if we don't take care of our officers, we're going to revert back to the way things were 15, 20 years ago. So yes, I support this. I'm hoping that you'll vote yes for it. Based on your work sessions, I feel confident that you will. But I'd also like to just leave you with one thought. Remember that in 2020, COVID did some terrible things, and the Zoom is one of the upsides of it. But in 2020, we had to drastically reduce our operational budget to just under $7 million. And we did so without cutting any public services, without laying anybody off, and without firing anyone. And knowing that we can do that when we absolutely have to makes me question why we're not doing that on a regular basis to support the men and women that serve us and protect us, including our fire response. So please vote yes. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Angel. Go ahead.
I am Sebastian Benitez. They deserve more about what they are asking. You know that one. I really appreciate these guys. When I mentioned I have a 3 ticket in 1 month was real. I'm from Ogden Police Department. They deserve more. When I decide to run, I propose 30%. And I think they deserve 30%. If you approve today, I suggest please approve today. Next year, we can complete 30%. They deserve more, whatever we are. We can do it, Thank you, guys. Chief. That is my whole comment about the police department. I love this city, and I love this police department, and I need they receive more because they don't need to look this different other job, extra job, or extra income. With 30%, they will receive a little bit better. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay.
Chair, seeing no more movement and no more hands online, I would make a motion that we close the public hearing on this item.
Second.
Thank you. We have a motion to close the public hearing on this item by Councilmember Heyer and a second by Councilmember Chaburka. This is a voice vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? That passes. Is there any further discussion or comments from council members on this item?
I may, if I'm wrong, correct me, but I'm glad to see also that we're looking at the general employees of receiving $1.1 million. And I think all of our employees do an outstanding job, and we need to also look at the other employees, the general employees, to make sure we can take care of their operations also.
Mm-hmm.
I would just echo what the police chief has said. I have a son-in-law that's in law enforcement, not in Ogden City, but I know that there's a weight on a family that has an officer that serves, and these good servants in blue, men and women, they really come to the job with their heart, and Ogden is blessed with some really good people that serve us. I can't tell you how much it disheartens me that the culture has changed in our city, in our country. that, little boys don't want to be a policeman anymore for some reason. And it's just a shame. But we've got to make sure that we value these people and treat them for, they can keep us sleeping safe at night. And it's important that we reward them for that effort. I am a huge supporter of the police and will continue to be so. Thank them for their service and thanks to the chief and our finance people to have figured out how to make this work. We will continue to stay this council member will continue to stay vigilant with making sure that we keep up to the best of our ability. So
I've already mentioned the trip that Councilmember Lopez and I took with these guys, but I was struck, and this is something I told my wife, there was a ton of grief that we saw there. Within our own department, there's a lot of people in this community and in this department that love Officer Liable. And the grief, it spreads to more people than we might recognize. When you see a lot of those people all in one place, it makes an impact visually, and I think that's part of the point of the event. But knowing that grief extends far beyond what we even saw in the candlelight vigil with tens of thousands of people is hard to grasp. But one thing that we were enjoying some fun Irish music one night, and there was all these departments, and everywhere you went and ate, there were police departments and police officers. They trade coins. Strangers come give you a hug because of the shirt you're wearing and so on. And one city came to me and said, I want you to meet the father of our lost officer. And this is a department in Kansas. And the officer's father, who grieved a ton, was so frustrated by the lack of support that they had in the community from their city council specifically, that their department didn't get raises when they asked. Their council legitimately voted them down. And he was so frustrated and motivated by that having lost his son, he is running for city council in that town to fix it. And it's heartening to know that we don't have to do that here. I just implore you guys to do what we've always done to support our officers, to make sure that when they leave here, they know that they've got not just support in the vote, but they've got love in their elected officials. And that same love extends to the people that they serve, that they love, admire, and respect, just like we do too. It's really important that they see what we're going to do today and that they know it in their hearts. So I would just urge you to do that tonight. Thanks.
I said this last time when police officers were here, and I try to say it every time. I'm happy to do these type of actions and take on these type of decisions because every day you go out and you stand up and you stick up for us and for the citizens. And this is one time where we get to stand up and stick up for you. And I'm happy to do it. I've done it every time that it's been presented. And it's an honor to be able to stand up and try to bring balance to what you deserve. I thank the chief for bringing light to that situation, that it is a balancing act. I know that everyone in here would love to pay you what we feel you deserve and what you're worth. But it just continues to move that mark. And I thank the chief for mentioning that and bringing that to light. But because that's a hard issue is balancing, the compensation part of it. But it's not difficult to stand up and when I see you, a lot of you stop in our store and I get to see you at our store and see you on the streets and at other community events. But it's an honor to be able to thank you in person and to thank you for your service, to tell you how much we love and appreciate you and admire the work that you do. I know there's no monetary value that comes with that, but it does make me happy to be able to do that, and that we have the kind of officers that I feel honored and blessed to have that we get to serve this community together. So thank you for the work that you do. And like I said, I'm honored to be able to stand up this time and fight for you, because every day you guys stand up and stick up and fight for each one of us and for everybody in this community. So I thank you for the work that you do, the valiant efforts and the way you do it, and the quiet dignity the way you do it, in which you do it. So thank you.
Chair, may I make a comment?
Yes, please.
And I just agree with everything that's already been said, basically. But I really do, and I think that we all have this perspective. We would hate for you to have to keep coming back to us in this manner and sort of asking, we need to do this again and again. We need to figure out some kind of sustainability plan, so it's always part of our perspective. I know this year was especially challenging with COVID, et cetera, to look in that crystal ball, but this is not something I feel is appropriate that the police department needs to come to us in an emergency situation and say, hey, we need support, or the other employees for that matter. So I hope that one day we don't have to have these kinds of conversations, because we want to make sure that everybody feels supported and like they're making a livable wage and supported in the ways that they need to be for training, et cetera. So that's just the only thing that I have to add, is I know that's kind of on all of our minds, is how do we get ahead of this and think about, real systems change to make sure that this doesn't keep happening.
Chair? I have a couple quick questions, comments. I was wondering, I know that there was something mentioned about fire wages, and that they're looking at bringing those up as well. I just wanted to get clarification. How would those compare to our police wages when they take effect?
See if I can answer that for you. So the as far as comparatively wage wise, I'd have to look to see what the two tables compare, but to what we're looking at to implement for them in fiscal year 23 would be the same concept of Evergreen has proposed these steps. We brought them to their closest one, which may not be where they should have fully penetrated to. And so when we bring the fiscal year 23 budget to you, part of the proposal would be to move them to where they should be in the Evergreen steps. So as of right now, it's based off of what Evergreen has provided. So.
Okay. So I just wanted to say that I obviously understand the crisis that we're facing in the nation with police officers, and that's why we're doing what we're doing, and I'm in full support of it. And I agree with all the nice comments that were made by everybody, but I feel the same affinity for the firefighters, and I'm sure you all do as well. So I'm hoping that we can try to do something to have equality with these two groups that I think provide that very important, courageous work for our community when they both put on the uniforms and come out to protect us. So I just wanted to mention that. I also wanted to ask the chief. Chief, I think I might have mentioned this in the past. I've asked you before about education differentials. I know there's some incentives for that, and you mentioned bilingual too. I just wanted to double check. I'm not sure if you have the figures or not, if you remember how much it is, but I want to advocate for an increase in those as well. And I don't know if you think that those could make a difference in our recruitment or not, or how much of an impact that could make or have.
Address that. So right now we're paying $1,000 for an associate's, $2,000 for a bachelor's, and $3,000 for a master's. We haven't had anybody get their doctorate yet. We'll cross that bridge when we get there. So don't know that I'm going to be the first. So, and I do see value in that. We have more and more officers coming through the door with bachelor's and master's degrees than we've ever had. And I absolutely see extreme value in doing anything we can to advocate and continue to grow that. I learned a great saying that I took from one of my predecessors and mentors, Assistant Chief Wayne Tarwater. He says, an education doesn't make you better, it makes you a better you. So it doesn't make somebody able to be a police officer because they have a master's or a PhD. But if they have that core of what that person needs to be a police officer, and education makes them even that much better of a person. And I firmly believe that, and I'm willing to do anything I can. I'll work with HR and with Fiscal and everyone to see if there's any way to increase those as we work into next year's budget.
What about bilingual, Chief?
Yeah, that's a citywide program, and I think there's just as much value in so many departments in the city of that bilingual. And it isn't just Spanish speaking, but there's sign language and many other languages that are in that same credit. And I see that value very much in the police department. We have a lot of Spanish speakers, civilian and sworn, in the police department, but there's great value in other departments in the city. So that's something we'd want to look at, I think, citywide to increase.
I was just curious if you think also kind of in parity with the crisis that we are facing with law enforcement and recruiting and retention, and also sometimes as we talk about our desire to increase the diversity, if that potential differential in bilingual might also be important to look at a little closer and study a little bit more to see if it will be worth to have even bigger incentives in that area.
Yeah, I think our bilingual is based. I mean, I guess it may work toward diversity, but it's a skill. It's a tangent skill that helps us in our work, whether you're a public works individual or whatever you're doing in the city. Being able to communicate with people, whether it's being able to sign with them or speak Spanish with them, is critical. And to be frank with you, we have a lot of Hispanic officers who would identify as Hispanic that don't speak Spanish. So we have a lot of Spanish speakers. So it's kind of we're doing a great job recruiting diversity, but that in of itself may not continue to grow that. But it's a priority, absolutely.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Ready for motion?
I am.
And Chair, I'd like to make a motion that we adopt proposed ordinance 2021-48.
I second it.
Thank you. We have a motion by Councilmember Heyer to adopt proposed ordinance 2021-48 and a second by Councilmember Stevens. This is a roll call vote.
Councilmember Chaburka.
Aye.
Councilmember Heyer.
Aye.
Councilmember Lopez.
Aye.
Councilmember Nadolski.
Aye.
Councilmember Stevens.
Aye.
Vice Chair White.
Aye.
Chair Blair.
Aye. That passes.
And Chair, can I make a motion also that we adopt proposed ordinance 2021-53?
Second.
Yes, thank you. We have a motion by Councilmember Heyer to adopt proposed ordinance 2021-53 and a second by Councilmember Nadolski. This too is a roll call vote.
Councilmember Heyer.
Aye.
Councilmember Lopez.
Aye.
Councilmember Nadolski.
Aye.
Councilmember Stevens.
Aye.
Councilmember Chaburka.
Aye.
Vice Chair White.
Aye.
Chair Blair.
Aye, that passes. Thank you.
Chair?
Yes.
I think what we're looking at here tonight is the funds that we've allocated actually saves the city money because we get quality officers. And then our city is safe and we get quality people moving to our city. And so actually we are saving money instead of spending the funds that we've allocated.
Chair, I know this may depart from our norms. We don't usually applaud unless it was ceremonial. This feels kind of that way to me, and I would like to applaud our officers. And the rest of our good employees. I don't want to leave them out.
Yeah, right.
Thank you. Thanks, Chief. Okay. Next up is the fiscal year 2021-20 through 2022 budget amendment for the airport grant, sewer master plan update, and the FY21 unused and surplus funds, etc. And Justin's on his way.
Thank you, Chair and Council, for allowing me to come before you today again for another budget opening. Before you tonight for your consideration is proposed ordinance 2021-49 to amend the fiscal year 2021-22 budget in the amount of 4.6, just over 4.6 million. And this is for a various number of items. So bear with me. we went through these last week in work session in greater detail, so I'll go through them a little quicker tonight. And then if you have questions for me, just let me know. The first portion of the budget opening is to recognize some funds received, as well as for some cleanup items that we needed to address in the budget. The first one is a transfer of $20,000, moving some travel budget from our citywide travel account in our non-departmental to police. And this is to help with, to pay for those who went last week to the police week in Washington, D.C. And so that's what those funds are for. The next item is for a Firehouse Subs Public Safety, the Firehouse Subs Public Safety Foundation, some funds that we've received from them. And those funds are going to be used to purchase some equipment for fire, some chainsaws, as well as some other small tools and equipment. And so the proposal to add $13,625 to their budget for that. The next one was a cleanup item. In fiscal year 19, we were awarded a ramp to be able to use at Marshall White, the Marshall White Center, for parking lot improvements and some shelter enhancements. In some changeover in staff, we missed that as part of our budget that year. And so we're proposing, we need to budget both the ramp side and the match. The project's been completed, but we've never recognized that budget. And so what this is to carry forward some funds in Marshall White that we had set aside for match several years ago, and then transferring those to the CIP fund. And the amount that we're adding to the budget is $49,950, and then we would be transferring just over $42,000 to the CIP fund. The next one is a UServe Utah 9/11 grant to help promote service and volunteerism that we've received in the amount of $500, and that would be added to the public services supply account for them to use. Those are the adjustments in the general fund. That total is just over $64,000 being added to the general fund. In the CIP fund, the 17th Street CIP, which was adopted several years ago, had some additional funding that hadn't been recognized. There were two different sources. One was some funding that we received from Fresenius to help with some improvements along 17th Street. We had not recognized that, and the amount of that was $280,815. So we're proposing to add that to that CIP. And then we also were awarded some funds from WACOG over and above the original award in the amount of $238,900. So the total amount being added to that CIP is $519,725. And this, the engineering folks, they're ready to continue work on that project. So, the next one is, again, going back to the Marshall White, CIP, the ramp that we had received a few years ago. This is to recognize both the money coming in from the general fund as well as the ramp. That total amount is $84,575 for that CIP. The next one is to add funds to our Arts Plaza CIP, and there's two different funding sources for this. There was some changes made to the design of the beacon element at the Donkey Arts Plaza, and that will require an additional $80,000, and that funding is coming from the Dumpking Foundation. They're adding that, or they're going to provide that. And then there was also some changes that were requested from Weber State, some design changes, and so they are providing those funds, and the amount of that is $100,000. So a total of $180,000 being added to that CIP. The total amount being added to the CIP fund comes to $784,300. In the airport fund, we are asking that we recognize some CARES funds that were received from the FAA to be able to help with some improvements out there, and the amount of that is $1,005,500, and that's going to go towards helping with the remarking of the runway as well as operational expenses. In the sanitary sewer fund, each of our utility enterprises have a master plan, and it's been several years since the sanitary sewer one's been updated. It's the last updated in 2013, and it's usually recommended to be updated every 5 years. So we're behind on that, and so we're recommending a use of fund balance or retained earnings, to be able to start that update. The amount is $405,000. Normally, those updates are around $300,000, but one of the things that their engineering is planning to do with this master plan is to put some temporary flow meters to help measure the actual flows within the system. So part of that $400,000 is to help cover that cost as well. In the IT fund, we have a contract with security for security information and event management, and it's a 5-year contract, and we've in looking at it, we actually have a cost savings if we pay it up front for the full 5 years instead of each year. And so we're proposing a use of retained earnings in IT to help pay for that. That's a portion of it. The other portion is in the other part of the budget opening that I'll address when we get there. But what IT is said is that by paying it up front, we should end up with a cost savings of about $57,000 each year. And so the plan would be that those cost savings would then go back into the retained earnings over the next 5 years to pay back the use of retained earnings. So the total amount of this portion of the budget opening is $2,451,825. The second portion of the budget opening, each year, as we get close to the end of the year, normally we put spending freezes or we monitor our expenses just so we don't dip too low in our fund balance. And as you know, each year we've had excess fund balance, and it wasn't any different this last year. And so we didn't have enough time. Normally we would have the managers go through and encumber some of those funds that we would then carry forward. But we weren't able to go through the purchasing process to be able to do that. And so where we're at with our fund balance, in talking to Lisa today, we're looking at being about, I believe, 25% of unused or a fund balance. And so we have some unused budget that we're recommending. And a lot of these are for one-time purchases, things that these departments and divisions have not been able to do in their normal course of each year. And so we're proposing to carry forward fund balance and use that for these items. So included in that for management services, if I can find my list, portion of that is to use $15,000 to help with the rebranding effort of our facilities. We've done the wayfinding signs throughout the city, but we haven't updated all of the signage for all of our facilities, and so we're recommending $15,000 to be used for that. The next item in the budget this year that you adopted, it included a new facilities maintenance technician. And with that requires a vehicle for that individual, but that we failed to put that in the budget this year. And so we're asking part of the money, $43,000, to be able to use for that. Facilities also identified several things that need to be done within the municipal building, the public works building, and then some other accessibility improvements in city facilities. And so we're asking that we transfer. We use fund balance of $291,000 and then transfer that to the CIP fund and place that in the general facilities improvement CIP for them to be able to use some improvements to the municipal building, public works, and some other accessibility areas. We also are requesting a transfer to be able to use for another CIP for our ballistic upgrades. This is a security one that we're looking to do throughout the city to create some safety, to help with safety issues at a handful of our facilities. We've already budgeted $150,000 this year. This is to add another $50,000 to help with that design and planning to be able to work on that project. And then the last one would be a transfer to the Lauren Farr CIP to help with some chlorine contaminants and some safety issues there. And so that's what so the total amount And then also, sorry, and then the last item, going back to the IT, to help with paying for that contract would be $134,575 coming from this unused fund balance to go to the IT fund. So the total amount in the general or in management services is $584,000. Public services, as you can see there's quite a few items that they have listed, and we've talked about several. I'll touch on a few. They want to be able to purchase some different recreation things. Also, parks is looking to be able to replace and improve a handful of things with area maintenance equipment. We also are doing some building repairs at at Lindquist Field, as well as Surge Sibbins, some concrete work out there. There's also some equipment, a field groomer that they're looking to purchase that would also serve as a backup to the Lindquist Field groomer. So that's something that Parks feels would be very, very helpful. And then a couple other items just to touch on in here, as you can see, there's quite a few, would be some putting some funds into streets and engineering to help with some things that they need to do. This also, as far as the streets goes, with like street signs and some of their equipment, it would help to offset, and instead of them using B&C road funds to pay for some of this stuff, they could use that to help go further in other projects instead of spending it on some of these little pieces of equipment or things that they are in need of. So the total cost for the public works portion is $379,825, and then the last one is our medical and fire. We have a fire engine ambulance it's a unique vehicle to the city, and it's currently at station number 5. It's 11 years old with what they estimated to be a 15-year life on it, but due to the mileage that's been put on it, it's actually they've had to spend a lot of money just maintaining it. And so the last thing that we're recommending, and this is coming from both the general fund and the medical fund, would be funds to be able to purchase a new pumpulance. So $176,000 of that would come from the general fund, and then $500,000 of that would come from the medical fund. And then the other portions there you can see is the transfer in from the general fund to the CIP fund for those three projects. And then the last one is the transfer into the IT fund again for that contract. So the total amount of the surplus budget being added would be $2.1 million, and then the total appropriation is $4,617,225. So again, the request for you tonight would be to adopt proposed ordinance 2021-49, which would be to recognize funds for airport grants, sewer master plan, and other surplus budgets. Thank you.
Any questions for Justin?
Thanks.
Okay, thank you. Okay, this too is a public hearing, so we would now allow anyone who wishes to speak on this item.
Chair, seeing no movement and no hands online, I'd make a motion that we close the public hearing on this item.
Second.
Thank you. We have a motion by Councilmember Heyer and a second by Councilmember Chiburka to close the public hearing on this item. This is a voice vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? That passes.
Chair, I'll make a motion to adopt ordinance 2021-49.
Second.
Thank you. We have a motion by Councilmember Lopez to adopt proposed ordinance 2021-49 and a second by Vice Chair White. This is a roll call vote.
Aye.
Councilmember Nadolski.
Aye.
Councilmember Stevens.
Aye.
Councilmember Chiburka.
Aye.
Councilmember Heyer.
Aye.
Vice Chair White.
Aye.
Chair Blair.
Aye. Thank you. That passes. Next up, we have reports from the Planning Commission for the West Ogden Community Plan Amendment. We have Greg Montgomery here tonight.
Chair and members of the council, a petition had been filed with the city to look at a two-step process of rezoning property, and in doing that, a plan amendment was needed to the West Ogden Community Plan. So I'd like to review with you first the community plan portion of the petition and the Planning Commission's recommendation to you and where we're at this point. The request was to look at property that is on Binford and H Avenue, corner piece of property there. The West Ogden Community Plan had talked about C3 CO or options for the lower portion of the property that had actually been rezoned and then development took place. But as the petition was made to look at expansion to property to the north, the discussion took place about some of the changes that have happened in the ordinances that may alter the original request of the community plan. So, as I mentioned, this area with the red star, the community plan had shown potential for commercial in that area. One of the things that had taken place, though, is that since that plan was developed, and since a previous petition of 2017 that rezoned a property that was to the south, the ordinances were changed and the C3 zone would no longer accommodate what was being proposed as the new use. We had taken out warehousing, distribution out of the C3 zones. And so while this proposed an expansion, if we actually did rezone it or make a plan amendment, it would not accomplish what the petitioner was desiring to have happen. So as the Planning Commission considered this, they looked at a couple considerations. Again, I'm way ahead of myself in the video, so we'll just move up here.
Excuse me. Real quick, Chair, may I ask just a quick question? If sometimes for me and for other people that are not super familiar with the zones, if it's possible to just help us remember what they are as you're presenting, I would really appreciate it. Okay. Sometimes I remember some of them, but for the benefit of other people as well, I think they might be helpful. So, thank you.
So C3 means...
Way to blame somebody else. I like that.
So C3 means a regional commercial zone, mainly commercial activities. And what we had done in a couple of years ago was taking out some of the more industrial parts of uses that were in the commercial zone and put them into manufacturing zones, into the M1 zone. And so with that petition to say, I want to rezone this to commercial, with the changes that took place a couple of years ago, we took that type of manufacturing use out of a commercial zone of warehousing. And so even though the petition filed a couple years ago rezoned a part to C3, commercial, regional, the use that the petitioner really wanted to have happen was more warehousing, distribution, those type of things. And that would no longer allow that to take place if it went to the commercial zoning. So in this case, what the commission looked at was maybe making an amendment that went beyond the original request. And that was to say, not only should we look at a manufacturing zone option, but the question was, as the properties have developed in this area over time and transitions have been made between residential and manufacturing, would it be more appropriate to look at those policies to say, do we look at an entire block in making those changes? And as the Planning Commission talked about this, one of the concerns was if we only do the petitioned portion of the properties, the two lots, 875 and 835 Binford, what about those homes that are to the east of that area? And do we start to isolate them and wedge them between manufacturing and make the desirability of still living in that area even less by the other types of uses that are created? And that's where the Commission talked about, are we creating some type of peninsula or some area that just juts out of residential Years ago, when the first West Ogden Community Plan was created, that was one of the chief concerns, is that this area had so many different zones to it, that the housing that was there was not one of the zones that was allowed use. And so changes were made to try to identify core areas that were still being used as residential and zone them as residential. But as time has moved on and some of the other uses have been developed out in West Ogden, this is taking a look at that, saying, well, maybe manufacturing is the way this area is going. When the staff and the commission looked at this, staff had recommended to the commission to avoid these islands, we ought to take that whole block area between Binford and 27th and H and G, and make a recommendation that all be manufacturing. And also that to be more consistent, we ought to not only have that changes the map, we also should put some language restrictions in that to avoid those islands, we should require that entire block to be developed at one time to eliminate some of those homes being just left singled out between a manufacturing to the west and manufacturing to the east. So as the Planning Commission looked at that, they recommended to you in a 7-0 vote to amend the West Ogden Community Plan to add additional language that the manufacturing with a conditional overlay saying if it were not for a specific design, we wouldn't approve manufacturing. And some of those requirements of what that design would be is no outdoor storage or display, which is something manufacturing zones generally have, but to try to, again, make that balance between residential and manufacturing, not to have the outdoor storage, limiting the size to keep it in scale of 20,000 square feet, and to include all the properties in that block area to be part of any rezoning consideration. So this was a plan amendment language. It did not rezone the property, but said this is where we go in the future if requests are made. This was the first step to that petition that was filed. One of the things
can I ask a question before you get ahead of this a little bit? So if we do this and we require this whole block to develop together, how does that, I guess what limitation does that really put? So a developer would have to acquire the whole block.
Correct.
He could still do what he wanted in a little part, but he'd have to own the whole thing.
Correct.
So he isn't really developing the whole thing, the whole block. He's just making sure we don't create these islands. Is that the whole point?
Well, the whole point is really to do a larger development to eliminate those homes completely by acquiring them. But like you said, you could still end up acquiring all the properties, but saying, I'm only going to do this first phase on this side. Mm-hmm. But one of the concerns the petitioner had with the Planning Commission's recommendation, as you can see in this photo, are in the red dashed areas. Those are the properties he controls. The others he does not. Mm-hmm. And he felt that he probably couldn't get these other properties, and that would stymie his developments for expansion at this point. So as we brought this to the council in the work session, one of the items you had mentioned is to look at maybe doing a change from the Planning Commission recommended. Still have on the map for the future guidelines, that entire block area have the potential to be manufacturing with the conditional overlay, but to remove the language that they needed to acquire the entire block in order to do the development. So in this proposed language that's before you tonight in this PowerPoint slide, it is to just take a couple changes. One is to add the M1 and the conditional overlay with it, manufacturing conditional overlay. Remove the requirement of some of the old language that said in order to be manufacturing, you had to face manufacturing. Take that part out. And then we take out what the Planning Commission recommended in this. And so this would be, if you feel it appropriate to do a plan amendment, but not require that all the block has to be acquired at one point to consider rezoning, this would be the language that would accommodate that. And so what you have before you tonight is you have the Plan Commission's recommendation of acquiring the whole block and that language or this language that says, no, we still feel the block is important and future zoning would be manufacturing, but you do not have to acquire all the properties to then consider rezoning the property.
Did the Planning Commission or did anything come into the office, comments from people that might be affected by this?
I have not heard of anything come in that way.
All right, thanks.
And I do know there was some noticing that did take place, so I haven't seen anything come in.
Okay.
So what are we voting on tonight then?
So you're voting on whether or not to consider the Planning Commission's recommendation to you or to consider this revised recommendation, which you had asked for in the work session.
Okay.
Or if you have some other direction you want to go.
Another question. I remember at least one time that we've done this. We've required a larger area to be acquired and developed before we allowed a change.
Right.
The Lowe's development on North and Washington was one of those.
Right.
Is there any other ones that you can recall, and how did that work? Was it
We
a success?
have one area on Harrisville Road and North Street, and we required a certain amount of acreage that had to be considered. And while many people have wanted to do portions of it, no one has been able to acquire all the properties. And so that has kept the zoning the same.
So you wouldn't say that was a success, at least yet?
It depends. If you're the people that live there, it probably is a success because they didn't want to be left as little islands.
Good point. Yeah, I've never been sorry that we did that with the Lowe's development because what was proposed prior was, a convenience store. And,
Right.
and I don't know what else you'd have got. But this was, certainly a better tax producer, at least for our city, than, I'm sorry, a convenience store.
We turn that mic off.
Sorry about that.
Yeah, okay.
To me, in that particular placement or situation, I feel like it's a little bit hard to compare Lowe's or an entity like that to a small business like the kennel manufacturing. I just don't see it as disturbing maybe as something else that could possibly go there. So I like the idea of doing the conditional, having certain limitations on what could happen there, but letting them expand their business. I mean, that's what we want, right? Is for people to be able to do more business.
Yeah.
It's kind of what we want people to do.
Okay. Any other questions for Greg?
I think I interrupted him. Maybe.
No, I was done.
Oh, okay.
Okay. We may need this slide left up, Brandon, for whoever makes the motion. So just have a tip. Okay. We will now receive public input on this item on the proposed ordinance 2021-50, amending the West Ogden Community Plan. Please. Oh,
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Eric Halber. I'm the homeowner 807 West Benford Street in the area affected by this. May I first start out by saying that I strongly agree with you on the additional funds for our police department. Thank you for doing that. It's also my very first time at one of these meetings, and I'm not very good at public speaking, so apologize for that. I've noticed that business expanding a lot on my block, and I didn't know he was trying to expand more. It does feel a little isolated over there now with there being very few houses on that block left. I have not had anybody talk to me about wanting to purchase more of those houses there to get the entire block. It is somewhat of an industrial area already, and it seems like a good area for industrial as it's close to I-15. But just as a homeowner there, I'm working really hard to clean up that house, and I'm glad that the neighborhood has improved a lot. And I put a lot in fixing it up nicer. And so I'm a little concerned with there being huge industrial on both sides of me. I'm not saying I necessarily oppose it. I haven't really heard much about what the plan was. Nobody had ever spoken to me about it or said, hey, would you be interested in moving? Or how would you feel about this whole block being something, or almost all of it, and you being almost the only house left? I don't know a whole lot about what's going on with it. I'm not sure if that was lack on my part of finding out what's going on in my neighborhood. I don't know how to find that out, to be honest with you. I just wanted to input that. I'm not necessarily opposed to it. I just concerned about that whole area being behind my house to the west, being one large industrial center. That's all. Thank you.
Thank you, Eric.
Do you mind repeating your address? I'm sorry.
ma'am.
Do you mind repeating your address?
807 West Benford. So I'm on the corner of Benford and G Street.
Thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you. And then, Greg, I forgot to bring this up. The petitioner is Mark Kitchen, is that correct? I should have given you a chance to speak first. Would you like to speak? Is there anything you'd like to speak?
Sure. Well,
great, thanks.
I don't know what to say. Yeah, my name is Mark Kitchen. Do I give my address or? Anyway, I'm the owner of K9 Kennel Store, and we've just exploded with business. We just need more room, and I've purchased the two houses behind my building. They're dilapidated. They're probably 100 years old. So I was hoping that I could knock those down and put a nice building there. It'd be screened from. We'd have fencing and building to screen any kind of activity behind the building. And also, I mean, it would bring in a lot more income. We're talking, I think for those properties, I pay $2,500 in property tax, but the building that I own brings in like $25,000 or something. So it's considerably amount more for taxes. And I would try to keep it nice. And we're out of there by 5 o'clock. So we're great neighbors after 5 o'clock. I mean, we're out of there. So locked up and gone. So do you guys have any questions for me?
So you build kennels?
Dog kennels, yes.
Dog kennels, okay.
Yep.
We're not kenneling a bunch of dogs. We're building dog kennels. Okay.
Yeah, that could be noisy, but no. We just we build them and we ship them out and ship them all over the country. And it's just we're just so busy that we can't keep up and just need more room. And of course we'd hire more people too because it's going to require more workers. So we employ about 80.
When do you receive equipment and when do you ship out? And I mean, what are the hours of those kind of things?
We're there by sometimes 6, but 6, and then we're out of there by 5. So, and anywhere in between. I mean, sometimes it's 7 or 8 in the winter hours, but when we need to work more hours, but we are gone by 5.
All right, thank you.
Have you contemplated the other areas around there, the other residential areas?
So I own probably 20 properties in that area.
Okay.
And the other plan B would be to put it right on 24th Street, which I don't want to do. I was holding out for an investment for something nice like a hotel or something, but business trumps investments, so I would have to put my business there, which I don't want to. So anyway, but I do own probably 20 properties in that area, several homes. So. Any other questions? Okay, thank you. Thank you for your time.
Okay, is there any other public input on this item? Seeing none, I would either entertain a motion or further discussion.
Chair, I'm pretty torn, quite frankly.
And Chair Blair, if I might, Ross did send some motion language emailed right before the meeting, so in case you have anybody's interested in that.
Chair.
Yes.
Can I add to that?
Please.
The motion language that I sent. So Greg had mentioned that the C3 option doesn't work for the petitioner because it doesn't allow for warehousing. So just keep that in mind. If you do decide to use motion language that I sent, leave out the C3 portion because that is irrelevant at this point. M1 would be the only zoning option that would work for the petitioner.
That was in the first section, the first motion language. So it would just, instead of C3, CO, it would be just M1, CO.
Yeah, sorry, that's correct.
Okay.
Just M1.
Well, the way, and I apologize, I just want to try to confirm. So the resident that was speaking, I don't think, he's not on the same block as this, so it actually wouldn't affect your house, right? Oh, you are on the same block? Okay, so on the map, I just am having a hard time telling. Okay. Mm-hmm.
Councilmember, would you mind expanding on your tornness?
I can't
If
get
that's
that.
a word.
I can't get that thought out of my head about the movie Up, Mr. Ferguson. Of the commercial and manufacturing building up all around a house. That's somewhat distasteful to me in general. but you can't deny that that area is hot for manufacturing. It's developing in that trend and so that's what makes me a little bit conflicted on which way to go. I think that the acquiring the whole block has a lot of merit, can work, and also can protect areas that maybe need to have a little bigger development rather than just a bunch of little stuff. So I'm anxious to hear what all y'all say about this. What
I
do
just
you
have
think?
one more question, and I apologize. My understanding when we were talking about this before was that the petitioner had approached all of the homeowners in the area on that block, and that not all of them were interested in selling.
I did contact a few. I didn't contact you. I have contacted some, and they didn't want to talk to me there.
Mike.
One was an investment.
Oh, you might
Mr. Kitchen, can I just have you come up to the mic, just what's on the record?
Sorry.
And there's people listening in.
Yep. Okay. Yes, I actually talked to the person just adjacent to me. It's an investment for him. He lives in Farmington, and he told me not to contact him again. He didn't want to hear me or anything like that. So, and that one was right next to me, so I didn't feel it. It wouldn't do me any good to ask anybody else.
Was he the resident, or did he just own the home?
He just owns a home and he rents it out.
I see.
He lives in Farmington.
And was he the only one you contacted and have a...
Yeah, he's the one that made sense to buy first because it's right adjacent to me.
Looks like there's just 3 homes there on that corner.
There's 5 total.
5 total.
Yeah.
Can we go back to that other slide?
Oh, I meant on that side, but yeah, you're right, on the other side. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, okay.
So the resident that just spoke is on the corner there.
Yes.
We're here, right? Benford and G Street.
Oh, yeah. Okay.
So we're looking at the whole property, the whole block is what we're considering
Maybe.
on
Yeah,
that.
that is a consideration.
That's the recommendation of the planning
Yeah.
commission, right? I mean, they don't
Yeah.
want us to rezone
That's from
unless
G
they do
to
the whole block.
H, from
Benford to
Benford.
27.
27th.
And like I brought up, I'd build the building to whatever the city would want me to build there that would be appropriate for them. I just need more room.
What was presented in the work session was very nice.
All right,
The-
so you got
the
it.
video.
Okay.
The
Mm-hmm.
video you showed.
Yeah, that raised it to a whole new standard, that's for sure.
Thanks for reminding me that was the video connector. Yeah, okay,
Yeah.
great.
Yeah, very well done.
It looked good.
Yeah, I agree. And
What do you agree with?
I just said if you can't get one of them, then it doesn't make sense.
Oh, no, I agree. I just.
Well, Chair, let's try one, huh?
let's try one.
Then I would move to extend the rezone request with the direction that an ordinance be drafted to rezone 835, 875 West Benford to M1CO. That's just the part that he's proposing.
A second.
Chair,
Yes.
the community plan needs to be done first
Oh.
Yep.
before the rezone.
Sorry, you're quite right. Okay. And that's just straight up, right? Is that right? As it's written?
No, because we can't do the C3 CO zone.
Oh, that's right. Okay.
No.
Well, okay, then I would move that we adopt ordinance 2021-50, amending the West Ogden Community Plan to allow regional commercial zone or limited manufacturer zone conditional overlay zone M1CO between G and H Avenues and Benford and 27th Street. Is that right?
And then,
Did I give it up?
then remove.
You mentioned this the C3 CO. You can
I didn't.
No.
Just the CO.
Just okay.
Yes, the M1.
Just the M1 and
Okay.
M1CO.
Yeah, that works.
Okay.
And do you want to remove the rezone, the requirement to rezone and develop the whole block?
That's right.
Correct. Yeah.
Yes.
Oh, that's right. Yeah. Okay.
That's on that email.
Yeah. All right. That's the one that was there. Okay. That's my proposal that we
what she said.
rezone
I'm just reading it.
the partial that has been petitioned for, not requiring the entire block, to the M1CO.
I'll second.
Thank you. Are you ready? Okay, we have a motion by Councilmember Heyer, and I hope you got it. I don't know if I can say it again. Yeah.
Sorry.
Amending the West Ogden Community Plan. I don't have the email in front of me. Let me see it.
Oh.
There you go. What's this down here?
It's up here, right? And to allow the M1CO zone options of properties listed between G and H Avenues in Benford and 27th Street, but remove the requirement to rezone and develop the whole block under a single development agreement. Correct? Yep.
Okay.
And a second by Councilmember Chaburka. And this is a roll call vote.
Councilmember Nadolski.
Aye.
Councilmember Stevens.
Aye.
Councilmember Chaburka.
Aye.
Councilmember Heyer.
Aye.
Councilmember Lopez.
Aye.
Vice Chair White.
Aye.
Chair Blair.
Aye. That passes. Thank you. And now we'll accept a motion on the.
Somebody else better do it. I'm goofing them out.
I'm going to take this easy one. Okay, Chair. I move to extend the rezone request with the direction that an ordinance be drafted to rezone 835 to 875 West Benford to M1CO.
Second.
Thank you. We have a motion by Councilmember Chaburka and a second by Vice Chair White to rezone property at 835 through 875 West Binford Street to M1CO. Is that correct?
Mm-hmm.
That satisfies it?
Yep.
Oh, Greg's on the edge.
I do have a question.
Okay.
Oh boy.
With the conditions, so we do the conditions?
Well, one of the requirements of that conditional overlay zone is we do have a development agreement. And to have that development agreement, we need attachments of a proposed building elevation and a proposed site plan. And in the work session, we had made mention that we have 3 different building elevations and 2 different site plans. So we'll need the petitioner to identify which one is he really wanting to do. So then that can be put into the draft development agreement and the conditions established with that to go with the zoning. So, Ross, maybe I could just make mention, it's probably better to table now that we know which plan amendment you're looking at.
Oh.
So then we can get the criteria all put together into the development agreement to review.
Okay.
Is that?
Can we do a substitute motion at the table?
You can do either. You can extend or you can table. Tabling is if we know exactly what needs to happen next. So if, and that kind of happens, with the planning office and the petitioner, with the direction that you give. So if you feel comfortable setting a date and we feel like that we can, make this happen on November 19th or whenever the next possible date would be, then yeah, you can table it.
But we have a site. We have that information now. We just have to figure out which one we want to use. Is that correct?
He needs to let us know which one is he want to pursue.
So we're not starting from scratch. That's what I'm
Correct.
saying. Yeah.
Would you rather us table it or extend it, Greg?
I think if you had a table a date certain, that just says let's get it done.
Okay. What date certain? I'm looking over there.
The keeper of the calendar is looking.
Just a second.
Chair, if I could just jump in, I think that extending would actually be better. I think based on the calendaring, we can find a date and get that noticed for a day, even in November. I think we can still make that happen, even if it's just a few weeks away.
Okay.
But that gives us a little bit more flexibility rather than trying to pick a day when we don't know what's going to happen or how long it's going to take, trying to shoot from the hip tonight.
So do you want to make your substitute?
And we would bring a communication plan at the next council meeting to let you know when those dates would happen next.
Okay. So that would be Greg and the petitioner would be working on that.
Yes.
With our staff, right?
Yep.
Okay.
I was just going to say, this is harder than chickens.
Chair, may I substitute my motion?
Please.
I motion that we extend this petition.
Second.
Sounds good. There is a motion
I'm gonna make it
to extend this petition at property 835 to 875 West Binford Street by Councilmember Chaburka and a second by Vice Chair White. Is that a voice vote?
Yeah,
I think so. This is a voice vote.
I think.
I think it is.
Yes.
Yep.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? That passes. So we'll have the petitioner and Greg get together, and then our staff will work with that, and so we can just put those documents together and have that ready. Thanks so much.
Mostly cholesterol.
Okay.
Good luck with your project.
Yeah.
Andy?
I got the other thing.
Okay. I know we're somewhere. Next up is the Southeast Ogden Community Plan Amendment. Amending Southeast Ogden Community Plan to remove the requirement for vehicular connection on Navajo Drive.
Okay. Again, this is a petition that has been filed with the city to amend the Southeast Ogden Community Plan. Let me explain a little bit about what the request is. There's a 265-foot gap between the two ends of Navajo Drive, and the subdivision ordinance and the community plan talks about Navajo being connected together at both ends so the street is a through street. Typically, that takes place whenever development happens, that the developer is required then to make that extension of the street that goes through the properties that they're developing. The petition was signed by 65 individuals, 39 households that live in the general area, some along Navajo, some along some of the other streets of where this request is being made. give you an idea, as you look east from from Navajo, you see there's a rise in the elevation. There's also some footpaths that have been created over time as people cut through this property to go to the school, the park, other destinations. And as you look from the east end looking west, you can see there's a private drive access that goes to a home that's there now that was in place prior to the community plan talking about the Navajo Drive extension. This kind of gives you an idea of the prior parcels that exist there. And the history of this area goes way before this was part of Ogden City boundaries. The first home was built in 1953, and this area was then annexed into the city in 1963. As subdivisions developed, they always seem to develop away from this area. And finally, in 1990, the area west of this was annexed into the city, and the Stone Mountain Estates were developed so that created the two ends of Navajo Drive, with the middle part still being left as it had been for many, many decades. I think this gives, again, some of those changing. You see how the subdivisions start to build and then still stay kind of away from that area, and then the area is annexed in. This gives you the visual now of that area, how it's now developed out. As you can see, this is one of the last parts of that area of Shadow Valley to have any real potential future development. One of the concerns of the general plan is to encourage connectivity between communities. This gives you an indication that why you see the foot traffic, maybe where some pass through this, is because to go to the park or to go to the school along Navajo, it's a 1,100-foot jog. If you wanted to go any other way by vehicle, you're either 3,000 to 4,000 feet to get to the same destination if you're at the end of Navajo, because there is no through connections. You have to go up and around either to the north or to the south to get to those two destinations. One of the things in the discussion was that Navajo really is a local street. It doesn't connect to any of the collector streets, such as Skyline Drive, Old Post Road, Shadow Valley Drive. It doesn't connect there directly. And so it's a local street that generally serves the local needs of the citizens along Navajo and their surrounding areas. It was for that reason, one of the recommendations that was being developed is it may not be as necessary for road connections, but there's still the concern that you have seen pedestrian desires to use this as a way to get to destinations. So to remove all connections seems to be contrary to how the neighborhood is using this area and the needs to connect neighborhoods together. The question is, what is the scale of development and what is the scale of that connection that may be the most appropriate that this petition raises? Is it just a pedestrian access, a bike access, or is it a complete street? As the Planning Commission looked at this, they felt that the connection is needed, but it could be based on the scale of development. They recommended to you in a 4-2 vote to amend the Southeast Ogden Community Plan with the language that one of two scenarios take place. If development is only going to be one or two additional houses on that property, based on the scale, that they would say then a pathway, a trail, something that the pedestrians and bikes could use would be dedicated as part of any new development, but a full road improvement would not be required. If, however, development was proposed for more than two lots or two homes, then the full road, much like any other location, would be required to connect the two areas. The two planning commissioners who voted contrary to this recommendation both felt that a full road connection is what is needed to allow all types of transportation to access and connect to the neighborhoods, and that way help all neighborhood areas rather than just the foot traffic getting there, but allow other people to access it the same way in a shorter distance. So that is the recommendation before you tonight to consider this the plan amendment language of option 1, option 2. If it's 2 or less, a trail pathway needs to be dedicated. If it's more than 2, a road still needs to be constructed as the original community plan that talked about. Any questions?
Chair, I do have some questions. I think we've heard a lot of input from residents in the area. I haven't heard anybody that was not in favor of what the petitioner wanted, and it seems to make sense in that event. However, the walking trail, I think you said in the work session that there was some effort in times past to prohibit the walking or prohibit people from using that trail.
Well, if you notice at the west end, the fence that's there, to try to say what this is private property,
right?
And people still kind of work around. And,
I know how it works.
Yeah,
I just so it's a little ambiguous when they say to allow a trail connection. Are we talking a sidewalk or are we talking a dirt trail?
Well, what we'd be talking about is actually dedication of property to the public for access. Whether it be a sidewalk or a path, that has yet to be determined. What would be the appropriate material base?
So would that be decided here tonight, or
it would be decided as the development takes place to look at it. So what would be required is, do we require public access in terms of a trail being 8 to 10 feet wide, or do we require a full road to be constructed at time of development?
Okay, so let's assume that we will vote to eliminate the road from the master plan, but require a pedestrian throughway.
Okay.
That's kind of letting the developer, whoever develops this, off the hook on a full road.
Right.
Because that's what's in the master plan.
Correct.
And so it seems reasonable to expect then the development of some kind of an improved walking path in its stead, since that's, this would then end up being a public right of way and need to be improved. Is there something wrong with that thinking and logic? Or
no.
Is that what
is
that what the planning commission recommended, or
that is the intent?
Okay.
The subdivision ordinance requires that if we're doing a pathway to connect schools, there's some clear language that would be a concrete pathway. This is not quite a direct school connection, and so I think it'd be probably a good idea to add maybe some additional language that it is a hard surfaced pathway.
Okay, so there is quite a grade apparently. Is there steps involved, or is it still going to just be
that would be some of the design criteria that they would need to address to deal with.
Okay, great.
How you make that connection.
Okay, thank you.
So who would be at the cost of that?
It'd be the development.
So the property owner today would have to maybe...
If they were constructing new homes, yes.
Okay. And they would have to maintain the sidewalk or the hard surface?
Well, it'd be like a lot of our public sidewalks that connect schools. They're there. A lot of times it's neighbors just doing it, or sometimes it's just left that way. And, I can think of a couple of school connections where it's not designated who is maintained, it's just the public access.
Okay.
I also have some concerns about the walkway issue, just in sort of adding on, like snow removal, etc. If it's kind of a volunteer effort by the person that owns the property, I have concerns over time. It might be a commitment they make at some point, but then over time, maybe there's some disagreement, or how do we deal with that?
Well, again, like I said, with some of the other ones, we have those same issues that will presently exist. And it's just something we just have to see, how severe is it? It's not a high priority in terms of the city going out and doing those type of things. It's more for the convenience of the neighborhood to do that.
Just think it would be weird for the neighborhood to be working on somebody else's private property.
Well, at this point, it'd be like any sidewalk in front of your house, or any sidewalk that sometimes you may go beyond your property to shovel off for other people.
Except this is going right in. I mean, it's going inside somebody's. And it's just a little different because it's not right out front or something.
Right.
It's like going right through the middle of somebody's
Mhm.
property. So just.
I have one in my neighborhood. There's a public walkway between two residential houses. It's fenced on both sides, and it often does not get plowed. But if it does, it's one of the neighbors.
Yeah.
So.
But just.
The city will never do it. I can promise you
Yeah.
that.
Oh, no, and I'm not saying
Yeah.
we should. I just have concerns about it. And the only other thing is that I did reach out to the school district just to kind of see, how, was this in their plans, et cetera. And they sent back a map and said certainly they're not going to make comment on a public issue like this. But right now, and I would assume in the future, this would not be part of their safe ways to school. If it isn't, I don't think, it's not
No,
now.
it was not included in that.
It's not now.
Plan.
And I just feel like because it's a private property, I don't think it would ever be written into, official, an official school document as a safe way to walk to school. If it was a road, on the other hand, I think it would, because it would be a city street, right? I mean, it would be a city road if
Correct.
it was developed.
If the developer's building a home, I would hope that that developer would take care of that sidewalk through that area. But that's up for question, but.
Yeah, that's my concern.
But that's the intent, to have the developer, if he's building a
and I
home, to
think the
take care of
current
that.
developer that's proposing this would probably be very with it. But, eventually it may not be their property. I mean, it might have long-term consequences.
So another question is, so the dedication width, how wide would that need to be if it was just a pedestrian access?
Generally, for that multi-use is 10 feet.
Okay. And I guess would assume that they would put in maybe a 4 or 5 foot wide sidewalk, or concrete trail.
Yeah, as a minimum. Well, and it could be asphalt too. It doesn't have to be concrete.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, okay.
But the 10-foot right-of-way dedication is what would be one of the key parts.
Okay, thank you.
And this was discussed in the community plan, when they talked about transportation.
As far as the full road connection, yes. Yeah.
Okay. Any other questions for Greg? We have the petitioner, Mr. Larson, here tonight, so we can allow him to speak.
My name is Scott Larson. I reside at 5066 Fillmore and have lived there for about 21 years. My gratitude to the council members and other city officials here for your time tonight. Hopefully I can be brief as you guys have got lots of questions, and I think there's people here as well. I would like to thank the city council members that took the time to read emails from us or text or even talk with me or my co-petitioner Tyler regarding what we are doing. So maybe I'll just touch on a few items of highlight. One, let me address your sidewalk real quick. That was actually something we put in the original proposal, is that we would connect that neighborhood. Having lived there for 20 years and having 5 kids, whether the previous owner wanted people going across there or not, kids did. Right. And they do now today. What we would envision is something that's actually safe. If you go look at it, or I think there's some pictures in there, it's about 1.5 feet wide, straight down a mud slide onto the other road. So our intention is to put a road in or a hard surface. And my thought process would be that it will be a asphalt, not concrete, but asphalt that runs around the side of the property and towards the north sidewalk, so that we have a slope that works. This would allow for bikes, pedestrians, and certainly ADA access as well, which right now just isn't even feasible. And stairs would be contradictory to that as well. So just a few thoughts. One, Greg showed the map of Navajo there. That really is just a local street, and that truly is all it is. I have not talked to an individual anywhere in our neighborhood or in the immediate community that is opposed to what we're trying to do or asking to do for the community. Obviously, the building of a house is to my benefit. I don't think any of the co-petitioners were like, hey, I really want Scott to be able to build a house there. I think some of them did. But more than anything is the keeping to what our neighborhood is and what we don't want it to become. It is a fully developed area. There's really nowhere in Shadow Valley or anywhere off the feeder streets of Navajo that has any kind of development left or development ability. So there is no need for more traffic. One of my concerns with the safety that we've talked about is the speed on Navajo as it is already. If anyone would like to come up to Navajo, coming down Navajo towards the west, right before Taylor Avenue, which is a lost street you can turn on, there's 2 water diverters, big gutters basically. And there are plenty of marks in the road where people have hit that, bounced off it. One of the neighbors who I think is actually here, I think he's got 4 or 5 different bricks on his mailbox from the different times that the mailbox has been hit. It's a high speed right there. And that east side of Navajo to where Stone Mountain came in on the east or west side, when they built that complex in the 90s, they removed a tremendous amount of dirt to make it flat there to build in the cul-de-sac, which has created a grade between that 265 feet of anywhere from 11 to 15%, according to Ogden City Engineering when they looked at it. That's a tremendously steep grade, especially if you're coming down to the very end of what is now 5025, which we'll just call, West Navajo, right? It only has 1 house on it, and then to the south, it hits into a cul-de-sac. That is a main crossing route right
Scott?
now. Yeah.
Can you tell them where Stone Mountain is? It doesn't show it as on a road map.
So Stone Mountain Estates is 5025 south that comes into the west side of Navajo. That whole stuff going north past or towards the school is Stone Mountain. Okay. And then it turns into Point at Stone Mountain on the other side of the school.
Okay. Thank you.
So anyway, that West Navajo, essentially 5025, it sits so much lower, over 265 feet of dirt, to drop 15% grade is pretty tremendous. Additionally, that is the main walking route now for kids in Shadow Valley on Old Post Road, coming up 5025 to the school, and they keep them on that side of the road because the singular crosswalk there is directly across from Shadow Valley. So I think, by putting that in, we actually cause more issues than not. I was looking at the goals of the master plan or the general plan. It says, however, the plan requires future connection for a reason. Goal 1 was to improve traffic flow throughout the community. It's just not needed. There is simply no additional traffic flow needed. And by doing so, it would ruin goal 2, which is to improve pedestrian safety and access. Their safety would be far diminished. By putting in the sidewalk, their safety increases tremendously because so many kids are not on Old Post Road now, which does not ever get plowed, by the way. The sidewalk, that is, and keeps them in a much safer route, whether the school adopts that or not. The kids are going through there. And again, a future cost to the city there by not putting a road in is a huge part as well. The last goal is make connections between existing open space parks and trails. And essentially the sidewalk becomes the trail connecting 2 neighborhoods and students and kids and people, not only to the school, but to the park that's at the school, the Browning Park. That's one of our city parks. So those are, some of the goals we're trying to hit. The development itself, if I could just share maybe a vision. Right now, there's a home in the field that's been there since the 80s. There is no curb and gutter. There is no water runoff problems because it sits in a giant field. The intent of what we're trying to do is the same. We don't want to put curb and gutters in or cul-de-sacs that just add to cost of city maintenance, repairs, a tax base being spent there, but rather keep it as much open green space as we can and just put a nice home down in there. So the idea of putting no more than 2 lots in there is exactly what we plan on doing, splitting it into 2 lots and leaving it just like that. One of which will have a house on it, one of which most likely will not. So that's the plan for now. Our plan for the sidewalk certainly would be that we will maintain that as property owners. And I'm not the original owner of my house on Fillmore Avenue, yet it's still my responsibility to clear the snow from the sidewalk. Anywhere in our city, it will always be the responsibility of the homeowner to clear that sidewalk. And I'd hope that they would take the time to do that. But that really is our vision, is just to put a nice home down in there, keep it a green open space and connect the neighborhoods the way that they really truly need to be connected, which ultimately is the safest measure for our kids and pedestrians that are out there as well. Any questions I can answer for you?
I have one question. I appreciate your presentation. You've answered a lot of my questions. Who would be liable if someone gets injured on that sidewalk?
Great question. I would think it would be the city. I mean, at the end of the day, if it's a deeded easement to the city, which is what is the requirement, I mean, it would be no different than any homeowner again on Fillmore Avenue or Jefferson or wherever you live that says, hey, you need to maintain your sidewalk. And now, if I'm not maintaining it appropriately, maybe there's some onus on me, but otherwise, if it's deeded to the city, I really do believe it's the city's.
So after you asphalt it the first time, then we would be responsible for maintaining that?
I would assume so. But my intent still would be to maintain it and take care of it. I mean, look, when we seal coat that driveway that comes back in, I mean, maybe that is something we do. We put a seal coat back on that sidewalk. It's not a huge sidewalk at that point or a tremendous distance either. Fair question.
Thank you.
I would assume it would be the same as rest of the city is. I don't know why any property owner would have greater responsibility than what the city had in place.
Well, I don't own the sidewalk in front of my house, but I'm responsible for maintaining it.
Yeah.
And if someone slips because I don't, I think that's on me, isn't it?
We have legal counsel down here that
I know. Let's find out if he's been paying attention.
So you're asking if you fail to take off the snow off your sidewalk, are you going to be legally liable?
Or if you haven't maintained it, like if you haven't fixed the concrete or asphalt, would the homeowner be liable or would the city?
Well, that's a different issue. Depends on who has the liability. That's actually some disputed issues.
Sorry, I didn't mean to make you. But would we make an agreement, or how would we deal with that in this kind of case? I guess this particular case.
Yeah, Gary, like the sidewalk that's between the two homes in my neighborhood, it's fenced off from those properties. Nobody plows it, but if somebody slips, how are they going to pick who they're going to?
That's the same with the sidewalk on Old Post Road.
Yeah, it seems like it would apply to this also. I mean, I'm just confused.
So the city's the owner. Who's the owner?
I don't know. I've never looked at the plat to see.
The city.
Yeah, but in his case, it would be the city because it would be a dedicated right of way.
Okay, so the city will often own the park strip. Will have a law that requires the owner to clean it.
Mm-hmm.
That's one issue. I don't know if there's the same sort of law for just general maintenance.
I don't believe there is. I mean, I know if I damage my sidewalk in front of my house, there's 3 sections of sidewalk that I replaced several years ago because we drove a tractor over it when we were doing landscaping. That's my responsibility. But all through our neighborhood, in these older neighborhoods where trees are growing or pushing up sidewalk, the city often comes in and grinds them down the overhangs or stumbling blocks as they were and maintains those sidewalks because they are deeded to the city.
Oh, no, and I'm not trying to be problematic. I just know that's a huge issue for us as a city. It's a liability.
Right. I guess I would ask why, as a property owner, why would I have a greater responsibility there? Okay. Yeah, I mean, because we would certainly put it in and we do a quality job of what it is and make sure that it's, as we meet with Greg and with engineering to make sure it's what they want and the right grades. But we feel like we could do something that's very nice and certainly improves our immediate community for sure.
So if you put that in, would you have to have a petition or what do you call it from the city?
Building permit?
Building permit. Would you have to have a building permit, Greg, to put that in? And so the property owner would do that.
That would be all part of that.
Okay.
which I assume we could do with the development of a house all at one time. So,
Yeah. Any other questions for Mr. Larson?
thank you.
Thank you. Okay, we can now receive public input on this item. Anyone who wishes to speak on the Southeast Ogden Community Plan Amendment, time is yours.
Good evening. My name is Dominic DeWitt. I live on the corner of Taylor and Navajo. First off, thank you for getting the opportunity to kind of bring my perspective to it. Scott really did a good job explaining the situation, so I'm basically going to reemphasize a couple of points. First one being, Navajo is indeed a local street. There's two main thoroughfares in Shadow Valley and also Wasatch, and the area is developed, so there's not really a need for an additional connector to kind of accommodate traffic. Living there and working from home, I see every day the traffic from children going to and from school, and I believe a pathway that is exclusive for people, pedestrians or bikers, would actually improve safety for the children tremendously, because Navajo is already a quiet street, and then that connection down to Old Post would actually provide a safe passage. The other consideration, of course, is speed. Right now, as it is already with the gutters that are there, we see on a regular basis cars launching off of Navajo into Taylor. I'm the owner of the mailbox, by the way. So my concern is that if you put in a connector and basically extend Navajo, that the speeds will increase, and with the current grades will actually even bring more dangerous conditions. So I don't have a horse in this race, other than maybe that I appreciate the quiet neighborhoods that I'm having, and probably appreciate less traffic. But I think I fully support Mr. Larson in his petition. I think it's good for our neighborhood from many perspectives, and I hope my inputs can help you make up your minds and decide on this. Thank you.
Thank you.
I'm Dr. Mark Deniston. My wife and I, Christy, and our new 4.5-year-old son now are the new homeowners at 1505 Navajo Drive. We're the dead end. So I do have a horse in this race. I'm anxious to see it develop for safety reasons. Right now it's unsafe. I think as Scott pointed out, you squeeze through a fence, and I grew up on a farm, and it's possible. And it's doable when it's dry, but when it's going to be wet and muddy, I have concerns about my 4.5-year-old when he goes to elementary school at Shadow Valley next year, traversing that, as well as all the other kids who are, going up and down every day. So I'm anxious to see this develop, have a safer pedestrian walkway. The current status quo is less than ideal. It's unsafe. And as a lawyer, I'd worry about Scott and Tyler owning that and having kids traverse that all the time. The current status quo is really not ideal and really should be developed and allow pedestrian traffic, bicycle traffic to proceed safely through there. I think anything that would go in there would be a vast improvement on the foot traffic and the steep slide you have to navigate the fence. It would be a dramatic improvement to have a pedestrian walkway go through to let all the kids safely get to school. So.
Thank you.
Got all my neighbors here. They're great neighbors. Hey, I've lived there on that corner of Navajo and Taylor for 40 plus years, and it is a very safe right now. I'm very happy that the Planning Commission sees that you don't need a full road going through and connecting that. I do agree with my neighbors that a walking path for the kids that walk right along my sidewalk can keep going down to the school. So I agree with my neighbors. Keep it safe, keep it the way it is, improve the walkway, and we'll be happy campers and people will be safe. Thank you.
Mark, will you just give your name and address?
Mark Henderson, 5039 Fillmore.
Thanks.
My name is Clark Hogan at 1542 Navajo. I'm just a house or two up from where this proposed development is. And I'm very much in favor of amending the city plan to allow for the walkway to go through in the development, but not a full road, to keep traffic to a minimum. There's certainly not enough traffic anywhere in that area that requires another through street to accommodate it. We've lived there about 13 years, and we've had 6 children go to Shadow Valley Elementary. And when we first moved there, we asked permission from the previous homeowner if our kids could cut through that little dangerous dirt path with the barbed wire and everything. And he kind of denied our permission, so we had to walk 3/4 of a mile all the way up and around, as you saw on the map, to get to the elementary school that's really only an eighth of a mile away. The other option is to go down around Taylor and on Shadow Valley, Old Post. And the sidewalk there, as you probably know, is right on the road. There's not like a park strip along there. It's certainly more dangerous. And whoever is tasked with the responsibility of snow removal and trimming trees to make the signs for crosswalks visible probably isn't always on their best day doing those jobs. So we certainly are in favor of this improved walking pathway to get to the elementary school, the park, connecting the neighborhood. But there really is no need in my mind that we need a full road punched all the way through, as steep as it would need to be. So that's my consideration. I appreciate your thoughts. Thanks.
Thanks, Clark.
Good evening, and thank you for all that you do. It's my first meeting I've attended, and I really appreciate the first 2 initiatives. Being a member of an Indian tribe out of Washington, that was very special to see. And we have a number of members that are in law enforcement and support fire. My son's a member of the fire department, and so thank you for everything you guys do there. With regards to Mr. Larson's proposal, I fully accept it. I am the house directly adjacent to the property there, 1452 East, 5015 South. And I might have we might need to amend those numbers on the walkway for the kids, because I know they cut through my property at times, but that's welcomed. I'd rather see them come down through that property than come up and down through some of the other venues. I know that there are people, it's nice to meet some of my neighbors, by the way, to the east. I guess I would represent the neighbors to the west, of which that entire cul-de-sac, including a lot of the residential members down the road, all fully want to see, a pathway and not a road. I feel the safety, if we want to talk about safety of a road, I don't feel would be adequate. We've personally had people come and run into our property on the corner there, kids notably going too fast. And so that's a concern if that's a thoroughfare there. And again, I think it's part of the uniqueness of the area to have that property here. It's one of the reasons why we bought the house in the property there, the horse pasture, which is going to be developed, but developed appropriately. So again, it's Frank Fox. Appreciate it.
Great.
Thank you.
Thank you, Frank.
I hope you find this helpful.
As long as it's going.
My name is John Richards. I live at 5185 Taylor, which is at the bottom of the hill. I fully support the amendment as long as and I believe it'll be responsibly done and aesthetically pleasing to put in a right-of-way walkway through there. Where I live, I'm unique because I'm on a corner lot on Old Post Road and Taylor Avenue. And I can tell you that where my property ends, there is a section between my house and the house north of me that is on the backside of the development. And I'm the only one that maintains it in the winter with my snow blower, and I remove the snow and everything. My big concern is, along with a lot of these other folks, kids coming down Old Post Road. When the snow plows go by, they push it right up onto the sidewalk on Old Post Road. Nobody from 50/50 to the house that's north of me maintains that sidewalk. And so the kids are often walking in the road. They're walking on top of a large pile of snow. I believe that the neighbors up there in this area would be responsible enough to take care of a right-of-way and make sure that it's clear, and it would be a safer mode of travel for the students coming from to and from Shadow Valley. And I thank you for your time.
Thank you. If there's no other public input from the chambers, there's 2 hands raised online, so we'll go ahead and take those. First up, we have Angel Castilla. Go ahead, Angel. The time is yours.
Good evening, Angel Castillo, Ogden resident. It seems like Mr. Larson really cares about his neighborhood, and I love that his neighbors are all supporting them. It's wonderful to see a community come together, and I can tell, even though I've never met Mr. Larson, he means every word he says about being responsible and providing a great place for his kids. I have some concerns about what's going to happen in the future. I mean, this community rallying together and Mr. Larson being the good guy and doing the right thing as far as providing safety and committing to keeping that road plowed or pathway plowed. It's nice, but what happens when life happens? Sooner or later, it's going to be sold. No university, no city, and no school would allow something that is infrastructure to be built that wasn't set to the same standard. The plan calls for a throughway. You have 2 planning commissioners, Commissioner Blaisdell and Commissioner Skady, who both have, I believe, been in Ogden their entire lives, and they've been planning commissioners for over 15 years. And their comments are the same of the plan calls for it. Our population is increasing. What about circulation for the neighborhood? I mean, we have a legacy that you're supposed to leave when you're planning. What you do is supposed to look forward into the future and give it your best guess for 50 years. And our population is growing, and this plan calls for a road. And I worry about the legal exposure for the city. And it's clearly under the city's purview if it's a road. We maintain the safety. We maintain the snow removal. And I worry about what happens when life happens and the community that is there now when they pass on and it's sold to their children or sold to outsiders, that whether or not they're going to have that same commitment. So I highly recommend that you follow the 2 most senior planners on the Planning Commission and follow the plan and put a road through. But if you do, and I don't recommend it, but if you do decide you're going to go with a walkway, I think it's critical that you follow ADA compliance with a cross slope of a 1-inch fall for every 4 feet, which is a 2% grade. This is for people on crutches. This is for people on wheelchairs, that we make sure that the slope is not so great that people who have mobility challenges can't work with that. Thank you so much.
Thank you. I believe the next one was Rachel. Yes, we have Rachel on the line. Go ahead, Rachel. The time is yours.
Yes, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. My name is Rachel Manning. I live at 1558 Navajo Drive, just right there at the end of the road. I have to agree with my neighbors that I feel a walkway would work very well for our area. It's local area and it's not much for developing. And, you know, I go down Taylor to go onto Old Post Road, or I go down Fillmore to go to Shadow Valley. And I just feel like we don't have enough traffic in that area to really put in a road. I would feel comfortable putting in a sidewalk. I've lived here for 14 years. I have 2 kids, and they also walk down 2 and 4 by Shadow Valley. So, yes.
Okay.
And
Thanks, Rachel. Okay. Any other comments? Seeing none. Any further discussion from council members?
Yeah, I have a quick question. And it's probably for Greg. Did we consult the fire department at all? I mean, would that make it easier to access the roads or quicker, or the response time or anything like that?
We did talk to the fire department. We talked to Public Works in terms of garbage pickup and utilities. And all of them basically felt the patterns have been established, and didn't see any benefit or increased response times of that by adding this. They said all the infrastructure, all the patterns are established, and so they had no concern about not having the road connect.
Chair, I had the same concern that Angel raised concerning fairness and, you know, being consistent.
Mm-hmm.
And that caused me some concern for a little while. And I guess I can't say it's completely gone away, but I also know of, you know, having been a planning commissioner in a former life, we did allow this on certain other occasions, one that's near me and has worked very well. As far as the, you know, if it's a public dedicated right of way, the city would be obliged to maintain it. As far as, you know, if it started to crumble or if it, you know, started to be trip hazards and things of that nature, the city would be obliged to do so, just as we currently do with the sidewalks in the city.
Yeah.
It would be important that it is developed to city standard. It's not, you know, that would be required. I think that would certainly be expected. The neighborhood outcry is pretty consistent that they don't see a need for vehicular traffic through here. But if we can develop the pedestrian right of way, that would be a big plus for this neighborhood. Where if we continue to leave the street on the master plan and this thing just never develops because it's not practical, it's going to be how do you say it, a dirt slide, you know, that these kids are going to be using, or they're going to be walking way around. I don't think those benefit the neighborhood. So I've come to the point where I think, you know, these neighbors being fair, the better thing to do to be fair is to allow this to go through with a pedestrian right away and get it developed in a solid way. That I think is the most fair for this situation. Otherwise, it may just be this in perpetuity.
Yeah, that's correct.
So I don't know if anybody else wants to say anything. I'm ready for a motion, but ready to make a motion.
I think we're ready.
Yep. Okay, then concerning the proposed ordinance 2021-51, I would move that we adopt the proposed ordinance that would remove the requirement for a vehicular connection of Navajo Drive at approximately 1500 East Navajo Drive, requiring a dedication of a 10-foot public right-of-way improved to city standard as in connection with any future development or future homes being built on this parcels.
More than three.
Yeah, well, 2 or less, I think is what the ordinance allows, right?
I second.
You okay? Is Angela's like, okay.
yeah. No,
I just have a question. Where'd the 10-foot come from?
That's what Greg said.
Oh, that's what.
That would be the standard.
Thank you.
Chair, that's where I came up with it. I didn't dream it up.
No, I just wondered where it was.
Looks like Ross.
Chair.
Yes.
So the current exhibit has, I don't know if you can see it right now, but the current exhibit shows that Navajo Drive should be connected in one of two ways, require a full local road design as a connection if total subdivision development is proposed for more than 2 lots, and 2, require dedication and installation of pedestrian and bike lane that connects the 2 ends of Navajo if a subdivision of not more than 2 lots is proposed. It doesn't have language for specific width, so that would need to be...
I added that. So.
Right. So that would need to be... Would it be substituted? Replace that language?
Yeah, I think it's a motion to amend and then a motion to vote.
Right.
Oh, okay. Well, then I'll make that a motion to amend.
You still want to second that?
Yes. Second.
Okay. Is that a voice vote?
I think you got a roll call.
I think it's a roll call.
Yeah.
Okay. We have a motion to amend by Councilmember Heyer with his requirements listed. Most meaning the 10-foot.
May I say also that this could allow for a more of a circuitous routes to minimize the slope, as the petitioner may choose to do.
I thought that would be city, wouldn't it be to city?
Well, they would certainly work this out with the city, and that would be part of the permit process.
If it's a city, I'm sorry, I don't mean to, but if it was a city responsibility, it would need to comply with ADA and all those things. So whatever direction it needs to go.
Yeah, my point was that it doesn't have to be just a straight line shot.
Right.
That I don't think we should require a straight line shot.
I don't think we can if we want it to be ADA accessible.
Sure.
Yeah.
City
So I'm agreeing with you. Yeah.
Okay.
So we have a motion to amend by Councilmember Heyer, bringing it up to city standards, and a second by Councilmember Lopez. This is a roll call vote.
Councilmember Stevens.
Aye.
Councilmember Chaburka.
Aye.
Councilmember Heyer.
Aye.
Councilmember Lopez.
Aye.
Councilmember Nadolski.
Aye.
Vice Chair White.
Aye.
Chair Blair.
Aye. Now, do you want to make...
Yeah, you want to declare the vote first?
That passes.
Okay. Then I will make a motion that we adopt the amendment that has previously been substituted.
Second.
Thank you. We have a motion to adopt the proposed ordinance for 2021-51 by Councilmember Heyer and a second by Councilmember Nadolski. This too is a roll call vote.
Councilmember Chaburka.
Aye.
Councilmember Heyer.
Aye.
Councilmember Lopez.
Aye.
Councilmember Nadolski.
Aye.
Councilmember Stevens.
Aye.
Vice Chair White.
Aye.
Chair Blair.
Aye, that passes. Thank you.
Chair, may I make a comment?
Yes, please.
I just wanted to say I really appreciate everybody's input. And just to be clear, it's my job to be fiscally responsible and ask these kinds of questions for, using city resources. I'm totally into more walkable neighborhoods and I don't like cars. So I just want to make sure that's clear that I'm not advocating for more cars in any community whatsoever. So good luck. I hope it all works out.
Yep. Okay. Next up, we have proposed ordinance 2021-52, amending the municipal code to allow restaurants to serve alcohol on sidewalks and dining areas not directly connected to the building.
Can I just make a comment about this? I apologize to the petitioners that they've had to wait through all this time.
Yep. And we have Barton here with us tonight.
Well, good evening, Chair Blair and city councilors. So this is an item to consider amending this Ogden City Code to allow serving alcohol for restaurants to serve alcohol in sidewalk dining areas not directly connected to the building. So current Ogden rules do allow restaurants to apply to have sidewalk dining areas, and there's a process that they go through. The Ogden Municipal Code does require that if you serve alcohol in those areas, that they have to be able to control access directly through the building. So there are circumstances like those shown in the overhead where you have like two doors and one can be an exit directly from the building into the sidewalk dining area, or in the middle one where they have a plaza where, again, you can control access directly from the building. What that precludes is if you do a sidewalk dining area that's against the curb and the walkway is between the sidewalk dining area and the building, that those areas can't serve alcohol. Mm-hmm. Current state rules do allow those sorts of areas. There are some things they need to do to control the serving there. They need to keep an eye on the area in one way or the other. But currently they do allow, with the approval of the city, for these detached sidewalk dining areas to serve alcohol. In looking at this, we look to our general plan. Our general plan, these are pictures right from our general plan that show dining on the sidewalk, show detached dining areas. And the policy is to encourage food and drinking establishments to provide outdoor seating on public spaces. So that's part of the vision, and really any literature that you read on how to revitalize downtown, how to improve businesses there, how to get more people there, will recommend that you have sidewalk dining. And since there's only some businesses that actually could have a sidewalk dining area attached to the building, you have to have two doors or some way to have a second to divide an entrance. It really limits the amount of businesses that can have sidewalk dining areas. And so to promote economic development, promote downtown vitalization, the Planning Commission and staff both recommend adoption of this change. And so it's our recommendation to you to adopt the ordinance.
I do have a question.
Yeah, go ahead.
If the state has allowed it for a long time and we don't, why have we been, is there some reason that I'm unaware of that has kept us from making this change a long time ago?
The state hasn't allowed it for a long time. It's been fairly recent.
Relatively new?
Yes.
Okay, fair enough. Good enough.
What was the Planning Commission's vote? Was it 7-0?
It was unanimous.
Was it? Okay.
Just real quick question. Is it only for the CBD area or is it for the entire city?
This would be for any area where you allow sidewalk dining. So it could be in other commercial zones. Yes.
Or throughout the city?
Yes. Okay. I mean, obviously not in a residential area where you're not allowed to serve alcohol on the sidewalks anyway.
I was going to say there's not many sidewalks outside of that area that would have enough space. A few, but.
Yeah, I was just thinking on Harrison, there might be some.
Yeah. Maybe.
Okay, thank you. I believe the petitioner here, Justin Bueller?
They're still here.
Still here, yes.
Two out, yeah.
You guys have been so patient. Sorry.
Yeah, thanks for hanging in there.
Pretty soon we'll have to allow alcohol in the chambers.
My name is Justin Bueller. I live at 195 25th Street. I just wanted to sincerely thank you all for your time and consideration, and would be more than happy to address any concerns that anybody has. That's all.
I don't have any concerns. I just really love your restaurant. Thanks.
Well, thank you very much. I really appreciate it.
My only concern is your mental well-being at this hour after having sat through all of that.
Been a little nervous getting up here to talk. It's
She seems so pleasant, and you wear your emotion on your face. You're like,
thank you all very much.
You've been gracious.
I do have a question,
We
Justin.
love the length of your speech, by the way.
Thank you.
Justin, I do have a question.
Please.
Since it's not attached to the building, how do you control that element right next to the curb?
Same as we would as if there was no alcohol being served, I suppose. It is an enclosed area. There's a 10 by 35 foot or 40 foot enclosure. We do train our staff inside and outside. The guests always have the right of way. So as to whenever a staff member will exit the restaurant to go to the other side of the patio, we always train them very rigorously to look both ways and make sure there's no problems with any pedestrian traffic or anything of that sort. And in the patio on the north side is 2 feet off the street, so people can get out of their cars, walk on the sidewalk on the north side of the patio as to walk around the patio and not have to be in the street.
So there's a server in that area all the time then?
Yes, sir, when the patio's open. I mean, there's a server in charge of designated tables within that patio area, and so there's constantly somebody out on the patio.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Yep. Okay, we can now accept public input on this item.
Come on, Sarah, you know you want to.
Got it.
Yep.
Seeing no
Trying to see
motion, I motion we close the public hearing.
Oh, there's someone.
It's not a
There's two
public hearing.
people
Just public
on
input.
the.
You can make a motion though.
Yeah, you go ahead and make that motion.
There's two people online.
Oh,
There are 2 people.
Oh, don't make that motion.
hold on. We have 2 people with their hands raised. First is Angel Castillo. Go ahead, Angel. The time is yours.
Good evening, Angel Castillo, Ogden resident. In my early 20s, I worked at a restaurant, and I worked at a restaurant that had a sidewalk service that also served alcohol. And from my personal experience of working in the industry in my early 20s, as well as having friends who own restaurants, are chefs, are servers, restaurants take their licenses very, very seriously for alcohol. They are experts at managing any alcohol that is in the building and outside of the building, because it is such a driver for economic every table to have a higher bill with have a drink with your cheeseburger. So I fully support that we move forward with this. It activates the street, it promotes economic development, and especially service industry restaurants need every chance that they can get right now. It's a hard time with COVID. And so please vote yes and allow liquor on the sidewalks for restaurants.
Thank you. And next we have Heath Sato. Go ahead, Heath. The time is yours.
Hi, Heath Sato, Ogden resident. You'll be shocked to learn that I completely agree with everything Angel just said. This is a great economic driver, having people out in the streets, and especially we don't know how long this pandemic is going to last. The numbers are just as high as ever, and anything we can do to encourage people to use outdoor spaces instead of indoor spaces is nothing but a bonus for our community as a whole. Thanks.
Thank you. Okay, now seeing no hands.
Motion to close the public hearing.
We don't need
Still no public hearing.
Oh, sorry. I'm ready.
Do a motion, though.
I'd like to do the motion. Are you going to do the motion?
Go.
Okay, I make a motion to adopt proposed ordinance 2021-52, amending the municipal code to allow restaurants to serve alcohol in the sidewalk dining areas not directly connected to the building.
Second.
Thank you. We have a motion by Councilmember Chaburka to adopt proposed ordinance 2021-52 and a second by Councilmember Nadolski. This is a roll call vote.
Councilmember Heyer.
Aye.
Councilmember Lopez.
Aye.
Councilmember Nadolski.
Aye.
Councilmember Stevens.
No.
Councilmember Chaburka?
Aye.
Vice Chair White?
Aye.
Chair Blair?
Aye. That passes. Councilmember Stevens, would you like to explain?
Well, I'm not against sidewalk dining, and I agree with Seth that it can be an economic driver, and we should use the outdoor spaces for our opportunities of increasing our business. But I did have a concern about policing the area since it's not attached to the building. And I think I look at it as also a possibility of safety for the areas around this dining.
Okay, thank you. Next up, we have the item tabled from October 5th, the Business Exchange Industrial Zone Amendment. And we have Greg Montgomery here.
Okay, as you mentioned, Chair, this is another petition that looked at changing the standards for the Business Exchange Industrial Area. That's what the BEI stands for. That is part of the two zones that were created when we took the old stockyard and made it the Business Exchange Development. We had the Business Exchange Industrial and the Business Exchange Historic. There are 3 undeveloped lots in this BEI zone, and presently the standards state that anything that wants to be warehouse or distribution is limited to 50,000 square feet. The intent of that provision was to create this area to be more job creation in terms of industries that are making products rather than an industry that is just storing things and shipping them back and forth. So that 50,000 square foot limit is placed on that to take these larger lots and try to encourage other productive uses that's manufacturing related in those areas. The petition, as I mentioned, there are 3 vacant lots, lots 8, lots 11, and lot 3. And surrounding those lots are open space connections, a trail system that divides lot 8 and 11, and then it runs along the north sides of 11 and 13, and then we have the larger open space where the bike park is, that is to the north of these lots. Again, one of the reasons we have the zone is to create more of an industrial businesses, production, and not so much warehousing because of job productions and that. The question we asked is, have things changed in the original intent of why we created this zone? And is the distribution areas with limited truck access that exists along Exchange Road some of the better uses that could take place in this area? Those are things that the Planning Commission discussed and looked at. One of the things we talked about is that with some of the market trends, it does seem like distribution is a bigger use that is taking place. But with the other types of things we're trying to do in this business park, should all the lots be allowed to have that type of activity? Planning staff had said, well, maybe the best scenario would be taking lot 8, which abuts Bloom's Recycling, let that kind of be a transition space between Bloom's, the open spaces to the north, and the walkway and pedestrian access that is to the east, and let that be a possible transition area, and see what is the real demand for a larger facility that was being proposed. So staff had recommended to allow lot 8 to have up to 110,000 square feet. Now, 110,000 square feet came from the number that the maximum building coverage is 80%. That's why the reality of building something that big and trying to circulate around it is probably not likely, and so something smaller would actually be built, but that would be the maximum limit that could occur. The Planning Commission, however, felt that revising the ordinance for the Business Exchange Industrial to allow larger warehousing up to 70,000 square feet for all 3 lots was a more appropriate recommendation, and their majority vote that's what they recommended to you. The two dissenting votes felt similar to what staff had recommended, of let Lot 8 be the experimental lot to see what the real demand is, to see if that would really take place. In your work session, you had asked to go out to take a look at the site to get a feel of how this property sits with all these open space areas, what could be the additional impacts. And one of the things that was discussed there and that is in a proposed revised ordinance to you is to consider Lot 8, which is 626 West Stockman Way, to allow warehousing over 50,000 square feet up to 80,000 square feet. And in allowing that, there would be some design criteria that loading docks face away from the open space or the designated trails, which means in this case facing to the west. And there'd be a larger setback along that north area from the open space zones to 50 feet. And so you have before you tonight an ordinance that has been revised to state these type of things that you had talked about in the work session. So you have consideration tonight of the Planning Commission's recommendation to you or this amended ordinance that you requested to be drafted.
Thank you.
That's all I have.
Yep. Okay. This also is, we can receive public input on this one. So if there's any public input from anybody in the chambers or joining us electronically, we'll take it now. Okay, we have a hand raised. Robert, welcome, and the time is now yours.
Okay, thank you for staying up here this evening, late night here. Appreciate your time and wish I was there in person. I wasn't able to make it there in person, but I'm the applicant on this petition. I'm happy to answer any questions anyone may have, concerning the petition. I guess I just want to make it clear that, asking for this greater use for this warehouse space is purely to not limit the potential tenants that could possibly occupy buildings on these lots. As a potential developer of these lots, we'd really rather have the market dictate the space that they'll be occupying, and not put additional restrictions on the space. I mean, there's already restrictions, such as parking requirements and setback requirements and landscape requirements and building coverage requirements. Let those requirements that you've already have in place you govern what size of a building can be built and what that use could be. Please don't add additional restrictions that could potentially turn away other potential tenants. There was a little bit of misconfusion with the Planning Commission, which I think maybe has gotten corrected now, where they thought we were trying to ask for like a larger building, and that's never been the case. It currently, like staff had said, a 80,000 or even up to 110,000 square foot on lot 8. Lot 8 could be built, but we want to make sure we get that right. We want to make sure we have the right traffic flow and we have right, ingress and egress for those trucks that would be coming and going. And so the intent is to do on lot 8 what we would want to do on lot 11 as well, and to not limit the potential tenants. Just one last thought here is, this is zoning. There's these 3 lots that exist in all of Ogden, as I understand it, and one of the lots is already sold and his design is being done and isn't going to be an issue. Lot 8 is already a proposal for allowing up to 80,000 square feet lot. There's only one lot left really this impacts. And so it's not like it's opened the floodgates to other areas and other properties. So thank you for your time. Thank you for your consideration.
Thank you, Robert. Real quick, let's just ask if any council members have questions for you. Any questions for the applicant? Okay. Thanks for getting on, Robert. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, seeing no other public input.
You ready for a motion?
I am ready for a motion.
I'll make a motion to adopt proposed ordinance 2021-46.
I second it.
Thank you. We have a motion by Councilmember Lopez to adopt proposed ordinance 2021-46 and a second by Councilmember Stevens. This is a roll call vote.
Councilmember Lopez.
Aye.
Councilmember Nadolski.
Aye.
Councilmember Stevens.
Aye.
Councilmember Chaburka.
Aye.
Councilmember Heyer.
Aye.
Vice Chair White.
Aye.
Chair Blair.
Aye, that passes. Next up, we have public comments. This is an opportunity to address the council regarding concerns or ideas on any topic. Please state your name and address for the record and limit your comments to 3 minutes. We'll get to those joining us electronically. First, we have Heath Sato. Welcome, Heath. The time is yours.
Hi, everybody. Heath Sato, Ogden resident. 2 weeks ago, a number of people showed up from Marriott Slaterville to testify how Boyer's construction along West 1200 had ruined their lives, from blocking their internet access to turning beautiful mountain views into what now looks like the inside of a prison with 45-foot tall concrete walls. It sounded like they never received a proper warning because they live immediately on the other side of the Ogden border. The mayor himself spoke to the horror of the situation 2 weeks ago, saying multiple times that it was heartbreaking what happened to these people. Yet he followed that by saying, quote, "I don't know that there's a whole lot of compensation or anything else that can come out of the city for agreements that were set up that long ago," unquote. Last week I spoke to this topic and I said I disagree, that there's nothing we can do and that there's always something that can be done. Last week I brought up the fact that the city of Ogden would be bankrupt without the money we get from our partnership with Boyer and the BDO, so I understand treading lightly when speaking about Boyer. That area of town development that happens there keeps us afloat as a city. But the expansion that was agreed upon years ago, that expansion is ruining lives of people right now. And I believe that is our responsibility. To not do anything about this it's blood money. The city of Ogden ruined the lives of these people for profit. We will be experiencing direct financial benefit as a city from the destruction of a neighbor's quality of life. I'm personally not okay with the hands are tied, our hands are tied line from this administration. I fully understand that they aren't the ones who made this deal so many years ago. I understand you aren't, but they are the ones this is happening under. This is happening under you. This is happening under us. These lives are being ruined to benefit us, and that's not moral. It may be legal. It's not moral. That's not the Ogden I want to live in, an Ogden that's okay with being immoral for monetary benefit. Last week after I spoke, nobody on the council and nobody representing the administration said a peep about it. I'm hoping it's just because you all haven't really had a chance to discuss this yet, but you need to. Tonight, all I want to know from at least one of you is this being worked on behind the scenes, or do I need to keep harping on this every week again until there's some response? Like with the RDA issues, I'm giving fair warning that I will not be letting this go until there's some stated plan of action. The people of Ogden are better than this. If the administration has no plans to ever do anything about the lives our city chose to ruin for profit, then I want them to at least have the courage to speak up and say they have no plans to ever compensate people whose lives we are ruining for profit. Thank you.
Okay, next we have Angel Castillo. Welcome, Angel. The time is yours.
Thank you, Chair Blair. Good evening. I am going to say something that's probably really shocking because, I'm a huge housing advocate, and I'm actually going to say something that isn't in support of housing. And let me tell you why. In February of 2018, as a marketing consultant, I did a report for the state of Utah Development, Agricultural, and Food on top issues facing Utah's rural agribusinesses and other food producers. They wanted an outside perspective. And so what's really interesting about this is, and this is in regards to Anna Keogh's request at the work session, I'd like you to give it a second thought. Real estate has a higher value homes, residential homes near large amounts of open space sell for more money. We also, I know most of you went to the Meet the Shoshone, and there's something very special about the Fort Bingham area and that open space. And once open space is gone, it's gone. So not just from the residential economic supporting side, what I also discovered in my research for this report was that we're losing farmland at a rapid rate because of housing prices. What happens is farmers age out, their kids don't want to farm, and so they sell the farms. And I'd like you to take a look and think about it in a different manner. I know there are people here that want farmland that can't afford to buy farms. There are land trusts that are set up nationally for farms that will purchase farmers' land and commit to making sure that smaller farmers can take parcels of that and continue to work the land. I know of one person right now who's in the Ogden Farmers Market who's looking for land that she can't find because she needs a small amount. So think about how conservation of that would help reduce traveling and shipping for locally grown food, how it could help our small businesses do farm to table local things, how it supports the property values around open space as our city grows. I'm as shocked as you that my immediate reaction wasn't, yes, we need more housing of all types, but in certain scenarios, it needs to be planned and it needs to be placed. And that particular area is special. That particular farmland deserves to be protected. That particular farmland will change how our area feels as we grow, raise the property values for the people in that area as time goes on, and help us do more sustainable local farm-to-table micro producers. Thank you.
Thank you. Next, we have Anna Keogh. Welcome, Anna. The time is yours.
Okay. Am I unmuted?
You are unmuted.
Okay. This is Anna Keogh at 301 West 2nd Street. And thank you, Angel Castillo, for your comments. I just sent an email to all the city council. We came in at the last part of the work session. We had no idea that our application for the easement extension was going to be discussed. And we feel like we need to have a voice about this, as many important facts related to this decision were incorrectly stated. And we need to straighten out the facts before you make a decision. We weren't aware of the meeting. We weren't invited to attend. We thought that getting this resolution from the city was just a matter of routine. We didn't know that a discussion was required. We have letters of support from the mayor, state representatives, Weber County commissioners, and getting these letters was a matter of routine. The Utah Department of Agriculture inspects our property yearly, and their commissioner, Craig W. Butters, wrote a wonderful letter of support for our application, and that was not a matter of routine. But we would have talked to you with details if we had known it was necessary. The 40-acre farm is on the National Register of Historic Places. It is a really special place. The Binghamstone Farm has been a working farm since 1850. The easement is for this easement that we're applying for will just extend another 8 acres onto the existing 30 acres, and it's all for the preservation of ranch, farmland, and open space, which is plainly disappearing. Part of the farm was in the confines of Bingham Fort, and the Shoshone did camp here for centuries. And we'd really like to have a conversation and present these facts correctly, because this is really important to us. So please reconsider this before you make any final decisions. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay. Seeing no other public comment, comments from the mayor.
Sure, I'll go back a little bit, and I just want to say in 10 years, we have never done a mid-year budget adjustment. And what we did earlier and what you all supported earlier, I think, needs to get a tremendous amount of credit. I appreciated those of you that went back to Police Week and got to see that. 701 names put on that wall. It was emotional, I think, for everybody. And the action you took today really does resonate with our law enforcement and our first responders. So I want to thank you for that. I thought it took a lot of courage, and we haven't done this before, but I think it was absolutely critical that we did that. And I don't want some of the last conversations to get lost on what a lift that was for everybody. And I want us to reflect that energy back into our gratitude for what they've done and what they continue to do every single day. So thank you for that on behalf of all of our public safety and our law enforcement people. It really does matter. It was really touching for me too to have Native American Heritage Month recognized today. I thought that was really amazing. We can agree and disagree on a lot of the other things that have come up in the last little bit, but I think that mattered, and what we said for our public safety employees and our general employees really matters today. And I didn't want any of the last 2 hours of conversation to get diffused or diluted by what you did early in the agenda, and that really mattered. So I just want to say thank you and express my gratitude on behalf of all of them.
Thank you. Comments from council members?
Yeah, Chair, I echo what the mayor said, and would like to say it all again, what I said at the resolution about our employees and our public safety people. But I don't want to be redundant. But I was a little disappointed in our work session when we talked about this resolution for the conservation easement. We didn't have much information and data to act upon, but yet we still weighed in. I think it's worth a few minutes to listen to what the data is, listen to what, hear the appeal, see what she says. We may be surprised that there's some things we just didn't know before that might change our minds. And I hope we can take a couple minutes to do this. I had no idea what was involved in this. It's a new thing. It's a different thing. The mayor and I talked with Anna months ago. The mayor sent a letter of support for this. I also sent a letter of support. But I also, like Anna, thought it was somewhat routine. I didn't think it required a ton of discussion, but I think we owe a few minutes to listen.
Chair, I think that's actually how we ended the discussion. Was there's more information, Anna should provide it. I think we're open to listening to more information. It's not open and closed issue.
The issue is probably the timeline. Whether we, and I think that
how do we address that? How do we address that?
Well, I guess Janine talked with leadership earlier, and there is a potential to have a short Zoom meeting next week to receive this information and we can vote on it and receive input.
And we should mention for Anna's sake too, I don't think it was anyone's intention not to notify her. It was that we had an opportunity, really, because the agenda ran shorter than we were scheduled. We had an opportunity to discuss it, so we did.
I would say, and we were trying to accommodate her.
Right.
I mean, we understand that she's up against the time crunch, so we were trying to get this discussed and figure out ways we can help her still meet her timeline. So, yeah, I don't think that's a fair.
The question that we ought to look at is, can Anna get us the information that we could review? And I'm not sure if this week is available in that aspect.
I don't think that she has a choice because of the timeline. I think that we just have to say if we want to have the meeting, and then she has to get what it sounds like she can get some important information to us. That's what she said.
Yeah.
So on that note, I personally would like to reconsider having that meeting because what Anna said was important to me.
And I don't know Anna on the close personal level, but I know her well enough. She'll get us the info.
Yeah,
she will.
Oh yeah,
yeah, she will.
We'll read it, Anna, if you're listening.
I think we want to hear what she has to say, and that it's very important to us to do that.
Okay.
Yep.
So, so we'll just schedule a meeting for next week then. Won't have a work session, but unless you want to have a work session to have her present in a work session. So then we just have a meeting at 6:00 by Zoom with a anchor location here at the municipal building. Staff will be here to make sure that the anchor location's open. And then we can have Anna, and if she wants her attorney to present, I'll touch base with her tomorrow and we can make that happen.
And just so Anna's aware, I'm particularly interested in the historical facts related to the Shoshone camping, etc. When it comes to farm preservation, I guess I just have a different perspective. Farms to me are big, contiguous tracts of land that we're not going to save the history of farming as an industry and provide food and fiber for our nation as a whole by preserving a really small footprint farm in the middle of an urban environment. That kind of an approach I think is better taken in other ways. That's where my perspective comes from. But I do want to know about the historical elements. I definitely care about the history of the Shoshone people. Thanks.
That's all my comments. Thank you.
Sure,
And thanks to each of you for reconsidering.
Yeah. Go ahead.
I just have a quick comment, and it relates a little bit to the discussion in the work session, because I feel like sometimes people think that all I care about is housing. I've heard that a couple times, like, oh, here we go, Angela's going to talk about housing. I think I just need to explain my philosophy a little bit, and what research shows as well, is quality, affordable housing is kind of the cornerstone to people's health and their well-being. So when I'm talking about housing, sometimes I am talking about low-income housing or those kinds of things, but in the discussion in the work session, what I was really trying to get across is that there's a compromise. We have to start thinking about housing or the American dream in a little bit of a different context. And again, in another discussion and report from the Kem Gardner Institute, the Policy Institute last week, we are not in a housing bubble. This crisis is not going to end. We think, we're going through a cycle. We're still 40,000 units short in our state. So every neighborhood will have to take some of that load. It cannot just be East Central. It cannot just be on main thoroughfares. So when I was talking about that particular plot of land, I was saying, could we compromise? 5 houses is very different than 15 or 20. So I just want to make it clear that I don't want to be seen as like this never-ending recording of the same kind of thing. And someone did bring up, well, those people don't vote for me. Well, they don't. But if they could, my opponent is for no zoning rules whatsoever, or for people to be able to do whatever they want on their property. So if they would like that choice instead, they can make that choice. But I'm actually a better compromise to this discussion to talk about how we can think about things differently. We're not going to be able to continue having single-family home plots with a huge amount of land around them, and that's just a fact. We want to share the burden across the region and Weber County, so every neighborhood might need to take a little bit of that cut too. So I just wanted to respond to that.
Thank you.
Chair, I'd like to also side with the mayor. The most important asset that the city has is its employees. We can have the finest vehicles, we can have the finest equipment, but if we don't have the right employees, then the assets of equipment and vehicles have no value. The value we have in the city is the professionalism that we have with our employees, and especially our general employees, but also our police and fire. The reason I mentioned that it's a cost-saving element for us for what we passed is because we feel safe in our community because of the elements of and the professionalism of our police officers, but also what our firefighters are doing each and every day. I talked to a firefighter. They were in my neighborhood one night, and after they got the patient into the ambulance and they were going, the firefighter came up to me and says, "We have been running night and day. Today we went from one end of the city to the other end." And that's on a normal occurrence in our firefighters, is that they're pulling a lot of weight. And so because of their efforts and because of the efforts of our general employees and our police, we have a city that people like to come to and associate with us.
Thank you.
Chair?
Yes.
I would just like to request a break between this meeting and the next meeting, please.
Ooh, yeah. I may not be able to walk out of here if we don't stand up soon.
That's my only comment tonight.
I have one comment, and I'd like to direct it to Councilmember Chiburka. And I think I speak for everyone here when I say, happy birthday tonight.
Happy birthday.
That's a big one.
Happy birthday.
Boy, have we done you
If
wrong.
this meeting went any longer, we wouldn't be able to wish it to you, Norm.
There's no other way I'd rather spend
Yeah.
my 50th birthday than is with you all.
Oh, you liar.
Wow.
You liar.
You just lied on the record.
Can't see that something and grin through the mask.
Hey, I'm a public servant.
Public servant, right there.
So,
Do we have to vote on that?
Nope.
Happy birthday?
It's going to happen. It already happened.
It happened. So, yeah, I would take a motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
Thank you. We have a motion to adjourn by Councilmember Lopez and a second by Councilmember Nadolski. This is a voice vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed?
Motion
Thank
for a
you.
break. Oh, just
Yeah, I just need two. That's all I got is two. Oh, boy.
Can we? Is our recorder ready? Okay. These are going to be easy motions tonight. Welcome to the special redevelopment agency meeting for Tuesday, October 19th, 2021. Let the roll call reflect that all board members are present. First up, we have a public hearing for the flagship community reinvestment project area plan and budget. We have Brandon Cooper here.
Yes, sir. Thank you.
This hour.
Okay, considering that you'll take no action tonight and that you'll see this on the 16th of November, I will be very brief. And probably you're starving. You've seen this in a work session before. The purpose of the flagship community reinvestment area is to facilitate the growth of one of our vanguard companies, Auburn Sports. In 2007, they located the North American winter and outdoor headquarters here to the AmCan building on Lincoln Avenue. And they came to us in 2018 to talk about an expansion. Since their occupancy here in the city, as I mentioned, they have been one of, if not the vanguard companies that has helped us establish a pretty robust outdoor rec industry cluster. And so it's in our best interest, we feel, to facilitate their request that they made in 2018 to expand their warehouse. They went to both the state and the city for local incentives. At the time, their headquarter lease was running out. It was about to expire. So they had the option to not only not expand the distribution efforts that they were seeking to do, but to also move their headquartered company that has been here since 2007. So as is routine and tradition for companies, they go to local governments for incentives to help them to offset some of their costs of expansion and to look for incentives to remain in the locations that they're in. The state offered them $1.3 million in a economic development tax increment finance package. That's similar to our real property tax TIF, but it is in the form of corporate tax. They also offered them $300,000 in the form of a grant related to jobs that were retained or created. And then we, through negotiations with the city, the school district, and the county, were able to come up with a tax increment package that dealt with the real property investment that they would make and also the personal property investment for the 480,000 square foot building. And so that equaled a $4 million incentive roughly, and this actually paled in comparison to the incentive that they were receiving from other communities like Reno and Texas. That actually more than doubled in some cases. And so they were looking at some stiff competition, but through this negotiation and this commitment, they were willing to make the decision to stay in the city. And so we're here now to talk about the creation of the project area that would allow us to use the tax increment as the tool to incentivize that expansion. It's one of our smallest, if not the smallest districts. So the yellow line would be the entirety of the project area. It's a single building on a single lot. And that's all it would be. This is in the BDO. The BDO has expired. It expired in 2019, which is why the gap between the initial negotiations in 18 till now, we had to let that project area expire so that we can get this taken care of. So again, the project is the expansion of their 480,000 square foot warehouse to maximize their distribution capabilities on the western side of the United States. It would create potentially 155 jobs, and their investment with the real property and the personal property would be about $36 to $50 million over a 10-year period. The project area plan looks at a base year of about $22 million for that one parcel, just again, that boundary that I described. And this is the reason why we're re-noticing this. When we noticed it for this meeting, we had the base year of about $20 million. Since that time, we've received some additional information from the county that has informed us that the base year is indeed $22 million. And so we've adjusted the documents, and we felt like re-noticing that for another period would be beneficial for everyone to understand that. Nothing else really changes. They look to do the same amount of investment that they intended to do, adding to the total taxable valuation of that lot to about $58 million. This CRA would last, proposed to be 10 years. It's 100% participation rate from the three entities, Ogden City, pending approval, Weber County, and the Ogden City School District. And those are the maximums that those entities would be asked to contribute over the 10-year period. $645 for the city, $645,000 roughly, 1.6 for the school district, and roughly $638,000 for the county. And so overall, we would collect about $2.9 million over the 10-year period. Available to offer to AMR for that incentive would be about $2.4 million. We would retain about $242,000 for our housing investments, and $202,000 would go to our administrative costs that we generally use to pay for staff and other things to administer the RDA. Any questions?
Thank you.
Okay.
I recall that year, 2007.
Good year.
So I'll try to be quick with my question, but it seems backwards. It seems like we should have established it first before GoEd gave them the increment. Did we miss a step in there?
No, your thinking is right. So when they went to the state usually asked for a local incentive to match their incentive. And in this case, because of the timing of it all, and because the BDO project area was still intact. There was no way for us to double dip, so to speak. Tax increment finance was really our only tool to offer an incentive. There was no cash that we could provide. And this is a post-performance benefit, which is similar to what the EdTIF benefit is. It's after the improvements have been made, after the property tax increase has been realized. So had we not had BDO
Got it.
in place, we would have done it in that order.
Got it.
Yep.
Okay, like Brandon said, we did already send out flyers to have the public hearing tonight. So we'll go ahead and accept public input tonight, but we will take no action tonight. So if there's any public input on this, you can go ahead and take that now. Notice, that's the word I was looking for. Thank you. Okay. We have one hand raised for now. Angel Castillo. Sorry, Angel. Welcome. The time is now yours.
Good evening, Angel Castillo, Ogden resident. I'm fully aware we're in a position where we have to approve this, no matter what, because we can't afford to pay this money. How this came about is something that I'm not really comfortable with, and I don't think lives up to our expectations and the intent behind how we use a CRA. I understand that, as Council Member White brought up, that it seems a little backwards, but we're setting precedents, and this doesn't live up to the spirit of the CRA, of revitalizing an area and using that. CRAs should be very intentional in how they're used, and I understand it times out. And I also understand that we're backed into a corner here. And what I'm asking is that you as a body are very conscious about how this is going to be prevented from happening again. What procedures can be put in place so that when something expires, that this is the next thing that we're going to do. I understand that there were many offers to go other places. And I also am clear that most people take the path of least resistance. It's hard to move a company. It's expensive to move a company and people and recruitment. I love Almer Sports. They're a great company. They've done great things for Ogden, but I also don't like to feel that our RDA is strong-armed and that we're unfair in the way that we're utilizing an RDA. How fair is this to the rest of the people that would be in the previous RDA zone, that they can't take advantage of this finance because it's just for this one space? So I'm just asking you to be intentional so that we're not in this corner again in the future. Thank you.
Thank you.
Chair, seeing no more interest, I'd like to make a motion to close the public hearing on this item.
Okay.
Second.
Thank you. We have a motion to close the public hearing on this item by Board Member Heyer and a second by Board Member Nadolski. This is a voice vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? That passes, and we'll go ahead and have the public hearing again on November 16th. As noted, or as noticed. So thank you. Next, we have the Recreation Center naming rights, and we have Brandon Cooper again.
Yes, thank you. This is associated with Almer Sports. In 2007, as I mentioned, they chose to locate their headquarters in Ogden, and as a result of that, there was negotiated then a naming rights agreement for what was to be the Solomon Center. This is the recreation center over at the Junction that was being conceived at the time. And so that agreement was entered into, and it has come to a point where we're seeking to renew that extension or that agreement to actually extend it until 2034. This would allow us to retain the name Solomon Center of that facility, as well as to recognize some interior spaces that would be unique to the naming convention of Solomon as well. This is actually something that is acceptable to Health and Fitness, which is a tenant of the building. Obviously, the redevelopment agency owns the building. They're our tenant, and so they've been consulted. They're perfectly fine with the extension. It maintains some consistency that we've all had over the last number of years, where we've referred to that building affectionately as the Solomon Center. So we feel like this is in keeping with what we have been doing since 2007. It's in keeping with our commitment to Auburn as a local company who has done great things for the community. There are some conditions to that, as you see here on the overhead. They will have to maintain those conditions in the agreement, but they've done so thus far successfully. We believe that they would continue to do that. So our recommendation to you is to approve Resolution 2021-14.
Thank you. Okay, this is also a public hearing. So we'll go ahead and open the public hearing for this item.
Seeing no movement, I move that we close the public hearing.
Second.
Thank you. We have a motion to close the public hearing on this item by Vice Chair White and a second by Board Member Heyer. This is a voice vote. All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? That passes. I would now entertain a motion.
Chair, I move that we adopt ordinance 2021-14.
Second.
Thank you. We have a motion by Board Member Heyer to adopt proposed resolution 2021-14 and a second by Board Member Nadolski. This is a roll call vote.
Board Member Chiburka?
Aye.
Board Member Heyer?
Aye.
Board Member Lopez?
Aye.
Board Member Nadolski? Board Member Stevens?
Aye.
Vice Chair White?
Aye.
Chair Blair?
Aye. That passes. Next up is public comments. This is an opportunity to address the board regarding concerns or topic, or any ideas. Please limit your comments to 3 minutes. State your name and address for the record. Okay, we have a hand raised. Welcome, Heath Sato. The time is yours.
Hi, guys. Keith Sato, Ogden resident. I'm hoping I get an actual response to this one, and I'll be talking about the other stuff later. But I wanted to check in during the RDA meeting to see where things stand with updating the rules the RDA operates under. I was told by a representative of the administration that the city will still be enthusiastically working with that broker that misled you all on the Brown ice cream building, that they'll still be working on mistakes. They'll still be working with them despite these quote unquote mistakes. If the city's not willing to at least move to a more honest or competent broker, I think we have a lot more firewalls to put in place to make sure that can't happen again. I also wanted to check in on the status of that building. The last time I spoke to Mr. Cooper, he told me we have to work this way with fewer roadblocks and give developers better deals sometimes because time is of the essence. So I'm not seeing any movement on that property. I haven't heard anything. I'm wondering if time is no longer a big deal regarding that property, or is it just that all the dealings for this are happening outside of public view? I honestly don't know, and I'm curious to hear. So basically just two questions, real simple. What's the status of the changes being made to the RDA operating procedures, and what is the status of the Brown ice cream building development deal? Last I heard, that deal had expired, but that they were still going to work with the same developer despite all the misleading stuff that happened around that. Thanks for any updates. Good evening.
Thank you. Okay, seeing no other comments, comments from the executive director.
Sure. Nothing to add other than I appreciate Mr. Cooper being here all night tonight, and he was at the sewer board meeting all night last night. Appreciate your efforts. Other than that, I'll leave it there.
Thank you. Any comments from board members?
It's late.
Seeing none, I would entertain a motion.
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
Thank you. We have a motion by board member Heyer to adjourn and a second by board member Lopez. This is a voice vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? That passes. Thank you.